I am planning. So it's supposed to be a gaming day today. I just don't feel like playing anything. And so I thought, well, I got to do something for work. I can't just sit here and read books and post on Twitter. So I thought, let's do a couple more recordings for the MidsWatch. We're almost done. We're on like the last 27 episodes. And for those of you who've been a fan of the series, the last bunch here are extremely meta. It's going to be more, and I hate this because it's like, it's more applicable to those of you who engage in the community and not so much those of you who are just here to thrive in a marriage and that sort of stuff. It's up American Salamander. So there's going to be limited utility, especially if you're a brand new guy who's just been to the channel, but I will do my best to tie it into something that's at least marginally useful for you. As always, don't forget Red Morning. Small announcement, I'll make a proper one, but not going to be doing Red Morning this Saturday. I might not be able to make Red or Rule Zero either. What I'm going to try to do is make it on Sunday instead. So we'll see. Oh, hey, Alex, here to shitpost on Twitter. Yeah, problem is I don't pay the bills. And we're on full book marketing mode. So everything I do right now has got a photo of that beautiful thing of dread on it to get you in there. Now, for the topics, the first one is going to be, and you're going to see a lot of hate for the Blue Pill Professor on this one, a lot of hate. And I like Dave, I really do. It's just, he does it to himself for multiple reasons. I won't even bother getting into it, but there'll be a bit on the guys that try to turn this into a little cargo cult, recruiting drives, talking to your friends about red pill and why that stuff's annoying. Next one, wife using sex to try and control me after months of issues. Think it's a good sign. You're going to like this one. It's a bit of a longer one, but it really does get you to the point about like when a girl opens up to you, what does that validation mean? It's 100% that. And it explains it better than any goofball on here anywhere. Couch dude, nootropics actually work, and what do you recommend? I mean, depends what you're trying to do. But for me, the only real exposure I've had to them is with race tams. A lot of times if I really need it, like for my last year in the military, I think I had to take, along with full-time work and along with the stress of dealing with that BS from the story of the dark times, I had 7 courses to finish my degree that year. Or 7 courses. And usually, if you guys don't know, like a full workload, 40 hours a week is 5 courses. So what I would do is I would take 5 milligrams of pure tam and then a bunch of caffeine, and that tended to work. A lot of people, and Rolo swears by Madonna-Whore, and it's essentially like mine was an anti-epileptic, which is funny because my dog's on that now. It was really good because it had similar effects to the way people describe Ritalin, but it doesn't have any of the issues that I find were attached to SSRIs and that sort of thing. Now, I've heard you can't take it. Oh, yeah, it's a little on the messy side. I wouldn't suggest taking it long term because I've heard of people getting brain fog, which is kind of like harder time focusing on stuff. And I don't know if that's a withdrawal symptom or what, but I'm like, I have no desire to even find out. Epileptic here sucks. Oh, I can bet it does. I bet it does. My little guy just had a seizure yesterday, actually. Every 3 minutes goes through it. The girl after 60 seconds. This is his worst one ever. I'm like, they're all 3 to 5 minutes. Oh yeah, so long term. So I would just take them like short term stints. Oh, with caffeine. Yeah. A lot of people suggested eating eggs with it, but I mean, I already had eggs, so it wasn't. I don't really know if it's an issue or I was just lucky. But it was good if you had to like burst activity. So when I sit down and for the first book too, same thing. If I had to sit down and write for 8 straight hours, it was great. I've heard like there's a bunch of other types, but the Pirace Tam it's the oldest one. It's been around since the 50s. So it's been around. It's got the most research done to safety. It's kind of like got creatine in that respect. But there's a whole family of them. There's Anarace Tam, Oxarace Tam. I don't remember half the names, and they're all just derivatives of it that are made to be more potent so you can take less of it. But for me, I'm like, well, this one works. It's known dosages, and I don't have to fiddle around, so I'm just not going to switch up. So that's my thing. And everybody's going to be very passionate about it. And I suppose I could look into Madonna-Whore, which Rolo swears by, but I'm like, why? But yeah, that's the only thing I would recommend if you're going to go that route. Do it for specific burst activities and don't, like, I don't think they're addictive. I don't really have an addictive personality, but nobody's ever mentioned anything about them being addictive. But why waste? Why waste, you know? And yeah, if you get any symptoms of brain fog where like you have a hard time focusing on things, take a break, get some sleep. Anywho, so that one's a long story. Where'd I go on here? Buddy's impending divorce, improve my marriage. I'm just doing some last minute things here. The Whispers. Dread game. Oh man, there's 2 posts where we talk about the Blue Pill Professor's book on Dread. And I just know because I'm marketing mine, I'm going to throw his under the bus. And I feel bad. Nah, I don't know, maybe later. I was supposed to go to the gym this morning, but I kind of skipped that anyway. I had some other errands to run. So we'll have to see. It'd make my decision so much easier, by the way, if just replay mod would update to 12.2. Because then I would just be doing footage. Maybe I'll do a Zomboid run. I haven't done that in forever. Personal epiphany about betas. Oh, yeah. This is a neat one because it's about guys who finally become like, you know, high value male or whatever you want to call it then. And then they still think like their previous ways, like a former fat guy. I think that's the way I'll probably refer to it as. You're going to like that. Because for a lot of guys who are like, you know, put into work and do this and do that, they never really, they get there and then they still think of themselves like their former self and they don't realize you're a new person. You act differently. Your mental models change. So that's good. And then this last one here. Yeah, it's something on married friends. Oh, it's the TradCon thing. Actually, I love this. My favorite part's going to be the line from it. Like, father and provider doesn't get you any points. When you say this, you're saying your only value to your marriage is raising your kids and bringing a paycheck. Wow. No man's ever done that. A job and his kids? How are your wife's panties not drenched? And it's like, so that gets you started. There's also a reference to an old Dalrock post called The Whispers, which I don't think I've read. Or at least I haven't read in so long I've forgotten about. I have a feeling that's a fear of missing out thing, so I'm not going to focus on them. But that's the problem, is that every one of these is referencing 5 other things. And so like I could talk about the first one here we're going to do, the rules of Fight Club, you know, how to troll places and red pill people. And then they're making a reference to other communities that, like the blue pill one, that was literally coming after us, already having a split. There's a bunch of references to like Hunter Drew, which is like, I'm looking forward to seeing how these things continue to age over time. All right, you know what? Let's get started. So you've always heard us say you're not supposed to red pill your friends. There is a reason, and it's not because we're guessing. It's because we experienced it firsthand. This is the MidsWatch. Welcome, guys. This is Ryan. It's a bit, in these last episodes, there's 27 more of these, of which I think 20 of them will probably be useful. You're going to find a little more meta and conflict in here, which will be neat for the simple reason that seeing how a community coalesces around a concept and the inevitable human error that enters in. It's interesting. I find it interesting. I find it's applicable elsewhere. Like the same things that we were experiencing in a goofy Reddit subreddit 10 years ago are the same things we're kind of seeing in YouTube today. There's things you'll see in your office, 6 months from now. So it's one of those things where just absorb it and keep it in the back of your mind until it actually applies to like some kind of space, a bowling league or something like that you're into. So this one is from one of the oldest members of there. He's torrid history, called himself the Blue Pill Professor, and he talks about bending the rules of Fight Club, trolling the MGTOWs, the pickup artists, and the men's rights, and dead bedrooms for the married red pill. So I'm going to read it, but first I'm going to get this straight out of the way right away. I do not like the idea of proselytizing. I am not some door-to-door Mormon traveling salesman. I don't like the idea of us becoming a coalition or a band of brothers or any of that nonsense. I hate that whole collective thing because, like, a lot of the red pill is learning how to, like, army of one, be your own individual. And then from there, people who are attracted to the value you offer will join you. But the idea of just being part of a group, because I remember back in a convention that happened in Florida that shall not be named, we had a situation where Tanner Guzzi was like, I don't get it. Like, this space is obviously helpful, helped me in my marriage, helped you guys in your marriages, and you're single and helped you. Why is there so much infighting? It's like, well, and I was telling him, like, look, you can't expect people to be their own mental point of origin and then think we should all get along like chicks. He goes, yeah, that's a fair point. Anyways, that whole group split up like a year later, so I wasn't wrong. So yesterday, the Blue Pill Professor was listening to this guy, Turd Flinging Monkey. And he's a well-known MGTOW warrior and podcaster. If you don't know the term, it's men going their own way. Long history to it. Just know it's guys that are essentially eschewing women for a better life of complaining about women. And for those not in the know, taking the red pill can result in several outcomes. Some guys swear off women forever when they're confronted with their true nature. These are the MGTOWs who often claim the title of the only true red pill guys. Okay. It just seems weird. Anyways, he was talking about how men discover the red pill after they're married and suggested a new term for those guys because married guys can't be MGTOW. And some guys describe those guys in derogatory terms like FIGTOWs, but he suggests awakened while married or AWMs. I had to comment and link married red pill because a lot of guys were commenting there's no place for red pilled married guys to discuss red pilled issues. And that bothers him because our success rate is so ridiculously high, we need more married men to awaken. Furthermore, we can fix the problem of underexposure. So for those brave souls, I think it might be beneficial to go quasi or allied red pill sites and spread the word. I would not advocate for marriage in any red pill site, but I can certainly advocate the official MRP position. We are not in favor of getting married, but we are very much in favor of staying married because it's possible to use this stuff to have the life you want. It's not worth the risk to get married, but it's worth a try to improve your life and have a chance of avoiding divorce and... What the hell is this? Vagimanamony? Alright, whatever. So here's my suggestions. Go to the MGTOW YouTube channels, Stardust, Sandman, Red Pill Philosophy, and others. Go to the Return of Kings, Roosh, RSD, and then go to the Dead Bedroom site. You won't be banned outright, but prepare to be downvoted. But please follow the rules. Anyways, it's just a bunch of him listing a bunch of places to go, and don't blast it on Facebook, though. Facebook will nuke you. They will nuke you. Finally, if you do this, consider yourself an ambassador and behave accordingly. Don't argue, present facts, hold frames, and don't get into a maelstrom. My God, this is the cringe. This is the cringiest thing ever, and we kind of knew this. So, Jack and I are remarkably on par with our opinion to this one. It was one of the senior members. I think he was like number 2 or number 3 guy who joined the subreddit. Head moderator kind of thing. And all of us were kind of just giving ourselves a collective head shake. Like, we're not part of some weird locker room. Anyways, Jack chimes in. You know, my 2 cents. The reason I invest so much time in my comments here is because it's one of the few places that essentially demands you strip all pretense at the door and come in with your unvarnished and exposed ego. If you ever have tried giving real life advice on anything, have you? It's annoying as shit. Someone saying, "Can I ask you for advice?" is usually them asking, "Can you validate how I already feel about something?" Or worse, they take your advice and blame you. Remember that alpha is wolf guy? Yeah, that's what he did. Outside of the married red pill, though, he is not the exception, he is the norm. Now, I think the married red pill is great because I don't need to do any of this Socratic method BS. I'm happy to advise my friends because they're my friends and they add value to my life in other ways, but it's really goddamn annoying to have to constantly advise somebody by tricking them into pretending your ideas are actually theirs, which is sort of what the entire cognitive behavioral therapy discipline is about. Married red pill is one of the few places where we're able to say, here's where you're fucking up, here's some tools on how to solve it, and any outcomes are your responsibility, and actually have somebody listen to you and not cry if it doesn't work because, for example, they took everything you said hyper literally. The reason for this, I'd theorize, is that the organic way men stumble into the married red pill usually starts with a lonely and depressed guy typing, "Why is my wife so hateful?" or something into Google. And after various clicks across the web, he ends up at the red pill and then the married red pill. And so I'm happy to drop 4,000 words of advice on some schmuck whose wife isn't fucking him because he's going to be a hell of a lot more receptive than most people. An outcome of a recruiting drive is going to change that. Military guys, correct me if this is a bad analogy, but I see it as the difference between an enlisted volunteer versus a conscript. One way or another, those volunteers came here of their own agency, so they are a lot more likely to be open to the ideas discussed. Red knighting all over the place may bring a bunch of conscripts who may be annoying, and should we call them out, or do they have a somewhat valid excuse to reply, what is your problem? What's all this have to do with all this reading, and why am I a loser for not doing so? You told me to come post here. Like, see what I mean? He's not wrong. And this is why a lot of aggression is happening right now. If you're into the red pill drama on all the various social medias, and I'm sorry if you are. I'm really sorry if you are. But yeah, it's mostly Instagram ass model influencers and then people who actually like the content having a big fight right now because, one's popular and one is useful, and the two shall never combine. So if you want to grow the subreddit here, I would encourage more published non-Reddit content like Hunter Drew's The Family Alpha. If you came to me as one of my marketing clients, this is what I would advise. I would say you have a strong community here, and aggressively growing that is an option, but not without significant risk to diluting that community. Ask me how I know. By the way, that is funny. Dude, I haven't heard Hunter reference in forever. The best way to increase growth is develop more external channels outside of Reddit, under the control of existing community members where a consistent message and theme is there. If you have a political message like, Fox or CNBC or whatever, this is analogous to Fox Business Network, which is basically CNBC, but we like Republicans even more. And then it's easy enough to engage with the audience with the canonical stuff like O'Reilly and Hannity and whatever, way more effective than trying to air Fox News commercials on other TV networks. Now, I'm not saying we should never participate in other subreddits. I know one of the older mods, his name's Feardog, for one, hangs out around dead bedrooms and drops some good wisdom bombs every so often. But there's a sort of art to doing that. You kind of got to stick your toe in the water, gradually introduce your ideas, but code it in their language, and then other people go, oh, I like that. I wonder if there's any other stuff. And then they look through your history, and then they'll find stuff like a red brick road. Socratic method, right? And if you want to do this, go do this. But it takes time and work and effort, so you probably have to legitimately want to participate in that community anywhere for fun, and not just for the sake of red knighting. Now, this isn't true of every community. I doubt Coke gives a shit about the community on their Facebook page, for example, and would just urge me to figure out how to make this like button spam up. But I think it's true here, and I absolutely understand the desire for moderators to want to grow a community, but I think red knighting is going to give you a much different psychological makeup than the guys who currently find this place organically, and I don't think that's going to be a good thing. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to go on in this one. Anyways, continuing on, I just realized I left out a good point for why organic, homogeneous growth is so important. Married Red Pill is what you would canonically define as a counterculture community of men. That's right, the real counterculture is guys who want to sleep with their wives. What can I tell you? I mean, if you want to talk about stoicism, I hope everybody here realizes that this subreddit is literally designed to be ripped apart at some point in the future. Hopefully, not for a long time, in an order of years, but eventually we will fragment between counterculture members who want to be more countercultural out of principle and counterculture members who want to be less countercultural to be more palatable. If you want a good example of how this happened, consider that the pickup artists have, broadly speaking, branched into two directions. The first one I'd call the Mark Manson branch, and then the second one I'd call the Roosh branch. Manson's much more accepted in mainstream society and can operate freely and push his agenda without problems. Roosh would say that agenda is watered down and he's the real deal, and fuck compromising how you message that agenda. Manson would in turn say, oh yeah? Well, I'm not the one who's literally banned from traveling to different countries, so maybe I'm more of a success than what I'm trying to do than you are. I mean, you're already seeing it now with Roosh and the Red Pill. Roosh, oh yeah, So Roosh started this thing called neo-masculinity, which if you guys haven't heard about this guy Roosh V, neo-masculinity is red pill, but no gays allowed. That basically sums it up. It's just hilarious. And it's since then he's gone through like 4 or 5 different pivots. So yeah. Anyways, so I mean, this is going to happen to the Married Red Pill. It's up to the mods, but it's really all of us, whether it happens in 6 months or 6 years, and whether it happens when we have 10,000 subscribers or 100. I would argue that red knighting all over the internet probably just ensures the former, in both cases, is more likely to happen quicker and not sooner. And then following in, so if your goal is counterculture, to become the culture, then I would only point to the difference between second and third wave feminism. Second wave feminism has canonical thought leaders, Gloria Steinem, Andrew Dworkin, etc., and essentially push their agenda as a gradual, homogenous, cohesive group. Third wave feminism is literally a bunch of millennials on Tumblr whining about shit, and they can't even agree on what shit to whine about. Third wave feminists see Ashley Graham in the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, and half of them think this is moving in the right direction, and the other half of them think this is selling out women because being appreciated for the physical ideal of blah 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 must be eradicated. And all this does is get the occasional college administrator fired, but does little to actual impact societal change. And the real reason that chick's on the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition has nothing to do with feminism at all, really. Except for that some asshole like me figured out that pointing a thicker girl would get a ton of free PR buzz from those feminists screaming at each other and extend the profitable lifespan of a product that's quickly going to crash from cash cow to cash sink. Seriously, for all the hand-wringing about left-wing cultural indoctrination or some shit, you only need to look how any left-wing group basically starts up and folds in 6 months. Another great example, Occupy Wall Street, which started arguing about shit like drums 5 minutes into its starting. No unified thought leader, no gradual homogenous growth, just a bunch of whiny millennials who yelled at buildings for a couple days while they started yelling at each other. Meanwhile, we have about 40% chance that, oh yeah, it's some political stuff about Marco Rubio, so we're going to skip that. Yeah, but you know what? Screw that. Hillary Clinton's not ideological pure, so Tumblr Inquisition with her. So I would predict the Blue Pill subreddit would eventually split between those that think the Red Pill is inherently an evil ideology, and that anyone who even buys into it is clearly a misogynic ass, who is beyond redemption anyway, versus those who think it's worth considering why the Red Pill is appealing to certain young men, and whether it's worth attacking why young men would find Roosh appealing, rather than Roosh himself. By the way, if you don't know who Roosh is, just replace him with Andrew Tate. And it perfectly makes sense. It actually fits in identically. I just think it's funny that you go from Dick Masterson to Roosh to Andrew Tate, and it's the same guy, the same character. It's kind of like Alice Cooper, Gene Simmons. It's always the same thing. Face makeup, singing about the devil. You know, then Marilyn Manson, well, I don't take the makeup off in interviews. I'm like, okay. So I say all this because I know some guys here, like the professor, are really heavy on the sociological feminized decay of our society and see married red pill as this bulwark on the left-wing liberal indoctrination they see everywhere around them. So, man, like a lot of things in life, there's no game here you need to win, and you definitely don't win it with more subreddit members. You just need to wait and let all your opponents lose the game for themselves. So, my own thoughts on this one. He's absolutely right. There's always, like, if you talk with other people who do red-pilled content, whether it's like, you know, their own blog or a YouTube channel or you know, on the subreddit or trp.red or one of the 15 areas that guys swap notes on a positive male identity and sexual strategy. There is always a train of thought between I want to become popular or I want to become effective. And of those that are effective, it's always like, I hate feminism, and like defining yourself by the other, like being the enemy of things you don't like. And then just, you know, well, if they come along and they start coming along to our side, you accept them with open arms, all this goofy stuff, and none of it really matters. Like, I've made references here. Nobody knows who Roosh is. Nobody knows who the Blue Pill Professor is. The only reason you know who I am is because I'm actively talking about this stuff right now. In 5 years, you'll be like, who the hell is Ryan? We're thinking about Whippity Splash, you know? But the fun thing to take from it is defining yourself as being against something just isn't helpful. And this is like a good thing from a red-pilled man too, because a lot of guys seem to love the idea that red pill is against liberal indoctrination. And it's like, who cares? Look, do you really, it's like these guys that treat their wives as their arch nemesis, and they're very combative for it. And there's a portion of your red pill male action plan where that is absolutely necessary. When you are first starting out and your wife has been running points up on her little scoreboard, and if you don't get the reference, that's in Dread, the new book. It's out today, or I guess whenever this releases. I don't know. It's already out. Just go get it. And they need to do it at first because, you know, combative atmosphere is how guys tend to thrive. But then you get to a certain point where you realize, why am I making this 120-pound, you know, 35-year-old woman into my arch nemesis? we're supposed to be married. And then you kind of throw this scoreboard away eventually, realize like, I'm not here to fight you. She's not my competition. And it kind of demeans yourself by thinking that she is. It's the same thing, just applied writ large. And this is the part that I love. And this is the lesson for you guys from a red-pilled praxeological standpoint. It's that you come here because you want to get laid. And then you leave with understanding of the human condition. And that's the part I find fascinating. Fascinating. I think I've told stories plenty of times. Most of the time when guys, red pill, they do some dread, they fix their marriage, one of the first side effects that everybody notices is they start earning more money at work. And that's just simply because they learn to be assertive and they learn to shed nice guy behaviors and they learn to be more self-interested. And so whether it's switching jobs, whether it's taking promotions, whether it's negotiating higher salaries, whether it's just doing better in the commissions that you get, guys are noticing that just by being a chump is they're actively hamstringing their own career. And so it's just one of those things. There's that. You're going to find yourself in an HOA or HOV, which is the one, or a condo association or a bowling league. And you're going to find all these little dynamics kind of play out too, because it turns out it's not a Reddit thing. It's not a red pill thing. It's a human thing. And when people organize these, especially when you have no gatekeeping, like say what you will about a military environment, but there is a hierarchy and it is established and everybody agrees to the rules. But in life, your bowling league doesn't have a strict hierarchy. Somebody could tell the captain of the bowling team to go F himself and nobody can stop him. And so when you have these kind of informal hierarchies, you end up having situations like this. Now, how do you navigate it? I couldn't tell you. For me, what I like is when in doubt, ignore the meta and just focus on the work. I find that works much more effectively because, and this comes in with an older post, which I don't know if I'll do a video on it or not. It's Why Debate is Dead. A guy Whisper came up with it. And what he talked about was the debate has kind of advanced over the years. At first, classical debate. Two people argue to an audience about two sides of an issue, and the audience decides who is more persuasive, and they're like, yeah, he wins. Then it became more of an argument. I'm arguing with you, and you're arguing with me, so that both of us may strengthen our positions and come to a closer understanding of what truth is. That's something more modern. And then we have kind of like a postmodern thing, which is basically, my audience wants me to yell at you. And this is the stuff you guys see everywhere. And everybody talks about a debate. My audience wants to see me yell at you, to dunk on you, to call you bad names, because it's just blood sports. It's the champion of Greece and the champion of Mycenae fighting it out for me. How great. And so there's really no point having these arguments or having these beefs because they don't solve anything other than rabble-rousing and audience participation. So what do you really do instead? And it's just like arguments are won and lost by factors outside of it. So if the red pill is truly meant to be some great thing that's either counterculture or ingratiated into culture writ large, it's only going to happen because you are appealing to guys who appeal to the message and they do the thing and then they spread it out too, right? But it has to happen organically. And the reason organically is important is because if it's organic, that means it's working. There's no astroturfing in. People are getting more savvy and they're kind of noticing when they're being astroturfed into stuff. Ideally, it kind of brings us back to the basics, right? Good ideas thrive, bad ideas wither. If this is really as good as everybody says it is, then don't worry about it. It'll happen when it happens. So anyways, that's about as meta as I want to get today on this post. I'll talk to you guys later. Cheers. All right. Let's do some... I like how I sit back and start really relaxing once we get into it here. I feel like Grandpa, tell me the story again about the cuck. Like, oh, well, let me tell you, son. All right, whatever. 1 second, guys. I'll be right with you. This one? Yes. And so that is... that 26, 27... 26. All right. How's chat been while I was gone? Oh, where are my manners? Oh, geez, you guys got busy. All right. I can't understand why pay for OnlyFans. Good on them. I don't know. The porn industry, I don't get, like, apparently people pay for porn. The porn industry is bigger than anything but gaming. And yet for some reason it's free everywhere. So I don't understand it. Morning fellas, never say this, but the like, thanks Marty. Left wing plus blue pill equals blue wing. Whatever. The politics thing, who cares? Like, first off, men and women are kind of bigger than nation states. So conservative in Canada, conservative in America, and we're next door neighbors, mean completely different things. So it's kind of a nonsensical way to argue about things. Thank you, Marty. I'm going to pin that one because, you know, we got books to sell. 200-pound woman. Jesus. Opinion on Andrew Tate. What do you... Oh, shut up. I don't care. No hearing want couches out to the question. Watches Andrew Tate. I got a new one coming in. The Tekken for Pennies. I just got to get around to recording it. I got to do an ad for the book first. What's your mic and camera? Love the quality. Actually, Alex, you know what's funny? This is the workhorse basic bare bones setup. So this is called an SM58. It's like, you know, there's an SM57 and 58. You know that classic microphone that artists use? They have the big round metal ball at the end. That's this. It's been around since the 1950s and it's been good ever since. And it's just a focus rate. And the rest is learning to speak properly and setting your EQ a little bit up here to kill any electronic noise. Because it has like a weird section in like a certain mid frequency. But yeah. It turns out you don't need that standard giant SMB7 podcast dick to actually talk about it. As for the camera, this is like a hidden gem and I wish more people would use it, especially in smaller spaces. It's called the Mocos 4K. It's the best webcam on earth. It's a DSLR webcam. So like I have like 5 or 6 different lenses for it. This is the telescopic 35 millimeter, which I just find is better because otherwise you have to use a very wide angle fixed lens. And then you get like a fisheyeing effect, which I don't like. And yeah, it's a webcam. It's about the size of like a GoPro. It's awesome. But the only problem it has is it's always manually focused. So if you have a lot of movement, it's actually not very useful to something that has an autofocus. Yeah, it has an XLR interface. It has a focus rate 212 Bravo. But I mean, these things, like, I don't really need anything to it. All it has is an input volume selector and direct input to my ears so I can hear my own speech. And that's it. I think there's like little handheld ones you can put in there too. But for the most part, OBS can handle your EQ and all of the board settings. Great insight on the Socratic dialogue, behavioral therapy implied of it. Well, that's in the book. Funny enough, it's talking about luxury branding for the modern men. Can you wear a wig like 80s hairbands with Tekken for Pennies commercial? Well, I don't think I'll be in it. It's going to be Tate and then Lei Wulong. Yeah, well, it's because most guys get the Blue Yeti, which I had. It's just funny because the Blue Yeti is about $200. But if you look at this, the mic is 70 and the board is 200. So it doesn't cost that much more. You just have to do your research first. So how funny is that? All right. Anyways, I'm going to get to the next one here for recording. Let me finish this coffee first and chill it with you guys. This one's going to be... So it starts off as a weaponized sex life, and I'll probably do some like clickbaity shit. The title's like, when the wife weaponizes sex against you, this is what you do. And then get into the actual meat of it, which is the whole point of, or maybe that's the bleed in there is where, what does a wife mean when they say, I need you to open up and validate more, which is funny because it's, a lot of guys say they'll love, I know solipsism. Oh yeah, I know female nature. And then you explain it and they're like, wow, that's amazing. It's like, really? I thought you said you knew this. Yeah, well, I mean, I've read 3 tweets. I'm like, oh, well, fair enough. All right, let's get into it then. What started as a guy complaining about his wife weaponizing their sex life has turned into the understanding of why women say, I want you to be more emotional and validate to me more. It's a MidsWatch, guys. Welcome. If I'm recording these and releasing them in order, you got a pretty meta one yesterday. Today is going to be more content focused. Like I said, it's got a bit of a bait and switch to it. A guy originally is concerned about his wife weaponizing the sex life against him to get her way, like a manipulative thing. It kind of turns into wondering why women want us to open up emotionally. And before I start on that, it's funny because Practical Female Psychology for the Practical Man by David Clare Franco. I've talked about it a bunch on the channel. It's on the Sidebar series. They talk about the relationship phases, and I reference it a lot in Praxeology Volume 2 Dread, out in bookstores today, #1 bestseller, blah, blah, blah. Where, like, testing the man for fitness and then getting him to open himself up. So as like a broad category, the reason for it is because once we start opening ourselves up emotionally to girls, it tends to be a way of us ingratiating ourselves. It's not pair bonding, but it's like psychologically, it's like the Ben Franklin effect. Well, I told her my innermost secrets. I must be in love. And that happens before putting him to work. But anyways, at this point, you're going to get some insight into it. So it'll be pretty interesting. So this guy, all men, says married. I got 2 kids. I'm new. I've been lifting. I've been reading. And I have much to learn. One aspect has been an I just do not give an F attitude towards most things. I do believe I need to stop giving even less feelings about hurting people's feelings and just do what I want for me. Before marriage, that was me. The last couple years have been rough. Police involved in some BS cybercrime issue that lasted over a year and a half, and that my wife's family is having 2 divorces and her father was slowly dying. So naturally, we ended up having fights and a power struggle about feelings. She wanted me to show more emotion about the events that we're having in our lives. She managed to pull me in one day to our bedroom and said it was okay for me to be vulnerable. One time, and this one time I let my feelings be heard, and it was bad. It was bad. I felt like shit, and she looked confused and bewildered during the process. And afterwards, a few days later, I spoke to her about it honestly. I told her crying made me feel worse, and I told her it really didn't make her feel any better at the time either. I could tell. When I asked her how she felt, I was surprised by her honest answer of, well, honestly, dear, I don't like to see men cry, and it bothers me more than I'd like to admit, even though I asked you to be that way, and it made me not like you afterwards. I had let her pull me into her frame. Tisk tisk. Let her convince me that it was fine to show feelings, but in the end, we both understood it was somehow wrong. Men are supposed to be that underground bunker during shitstorm tornadoes, and we were going through. And at that point, I was a tent being flung about. Never again. Fuck that. I think I can let her feel and just let her cry on my shoulders from now on. Remember this line, because it's going to come up in the second half of this video. You're going to like it. I guarantee it's going to blow your mind, but I'm saving that till the end. That was the middle of last year. Sex was diminishing. Fighting was increasing. We talked less, and honest speech was far and in between, and then got worse. She started to see a counselor, and I was beginning to see where this was going wrong in so many directions. Even worse, I tore my meniscus, so I stopped going to martial arts. F my life. It all came to a head during Christmas. Her dad had passed. Our police issue went poof, since they effed it up, not me. And things should have been moving ahead. Dead wrong. It was decided the entire family was to meet for a white Christmas in a newly built family cabin at our vacation acreage. We did this to honor her father, since he was always having this as his dream and the cabin had been built. I knew weeks in advance it'd be an emotional clusterfuck. So now we're stuck at the cabin. Snow is 2 feet high. Everybody's drinking. And that was when I'm trying to be my best to be stoic and let the wife flush her feelings out. And then, holy shit. This moment came on the first day where me and my mother-in-law, wife and kids arrived a day early. I was the whipping boy all day. Do this, move that. Ready this, I couldn't do anything right. And the next day was even worse as everybody else arrived and things got busy. My time was spent walking on eggshells or being bored and slamming Bushmills down my... Bushmills? Jeez. Talk about aiming low. How do you build your own cabin in the woods, then bring Bushmill to drink there? That's like getting a Diet Coke with your McDonald's Happy Meal. It's like, pick a side, man. Anyways, what was I ranting about Bushmill here when I should be talking about a guy's horrible life falling apart? There were laughs and crying for the family members. You could feel the tension. And then it was that when wifey and I were asked to grab a couple extra mattresses out of the fifth wheel to put in the cabin. You know, whatever. We walked outside, and as we gathered the mattress, she just started bawling about her sister, who just split with her husband, being able to just go and do 3 kilometers every day. Red flag. I forget exactly what I said, but it's along the lines of, well, dear, you work hard 2 to 3 times a week with boot camp, and I'm proud of you for that. And then she snapped. To this day, I remember I pulled back in revulsion. The moment is why I'm here. I just went back, ate a harsh brownie my sister-in-law gave me, which I never do, and enjoyed the trip and felt real high, and left. It took a 2-hour-long drive alone in the snow and a walkabout to the lake down the road. I liked it. The point is, I just don't care. I drank, ate, had a good time, Xmas Day, kids, presents, movies, and we played some Cards Against Humanity, then left for 4 days, back home. When we got home, things were cold. And then I found you guys. So here's what I've done so far. Spoke to her about the counseling. I was honest, non-emotional, stated that the more she went, the more unhappy she was becoming. She said that her counselor was just dredging up a past as a reason why she was like what she was, convinced her to stop going, and instead, I got her reading more books on self-improvement rather than a stranger telling her how to think. With the books, at least she has the will to talk to me about them, and we can hash out what works and doesn't as adults. Decided I can still swim, lift, and wear a knee brace, so I'm going to lose that extra 15 pounds I gained last year. I look and feel great. I refocused on the years past, like just, not giving a fuck. This means I started to stop fighting and letting her draw me into frame. I became more honest about what I wanted. Sure, she turned me down for sex sometime or shit test me, and I've failed that a bunch, but more now, I just want to let this stuff run off my back. No butthurt, just, okay, you're allowed to feel that way, fog, and, go back. I'm making changes slowly, and maybe I can be even slower since she says that she keeps saying I'm different, acting weird. I just laugh and joke. And then I just do my work at home. Romance her for shit and giggles randomly, working out the humor, pushing her buttons aspect. Now, sorry for the novel. Valentine's Day weekend now. I've been tracking her cycle, and she's ovulating on Valentine's. We ended up going 3 times that weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Get what I'm saying? Normally, it's once a week. Wednesday comes, I send her a cute hump day camel pic on Tuesday, tell her I've taken the day off to clean the gutters, do yard work, and I'm shot down. Anyway, she arrives home late, boozed from her boot camp. We go to have lunch. Then when I come back, I make the moves, shut down again. She asks what my problem is, saying, wasn't 3 times in the weekend enough? I'm like, it's not the amount of times. It's when the mood hits and the time is right. Like 2 of us, middle of the day, alone, no kids, and hurrying to get to work. She was miffed and angry, and I wanted to sex her up. She told me I look hurt. I told her I was not hurt, but that as an adult, I could feel disappointed without being hurt. The next night, chilling with a beer, glass of wine, watching crap, and she says, look, about yesterday, not sure what's wrong. Maybe it's in my head, and it's just about us. You just do what you want to do. I can't control you. You don't care about authority or what your friends do. You just do what you want without asking. I'll ask if I can go out, even if I know the answer is yes. You just tell me that you're going to go do it, and it happens. Yesterday, you just thought we were going to have sex, and so I decided we weren't. I think the reason we don't have sex as much is because I think it's the only thing I can control. I just looked at her with a cute smile and said nothing. Didn't agree, didn't disagree, don't try to fix, poked her, she smiled back, felt good, or, felt like freedom. Did I fix her? No. Can she fix me? Can I fix her? No. So there you have it. The rest is just some pablum. So there's a lot to unpack on this one. I'm probably going to do like a full Substack article because there's about 15 different concepts in here that I could go through. I guess it's not really applicable to this, but just side note. The few things that are important is 1, you cannot treat your wife's emotional state as a success or failure. A lot of guys do that, where if she starts getting mad, they start treating it like they're doing something wrong. And it's like she's going to be emotional. That can't factor in. This is why the stay plan is the same as the go plan. The idea that you achieving your goals is what matters. Secondly, to accusations of being butthurt, and dude, girls assume magic rainbows fly out of their vagina and their sexual performance cures cancer. So there is no way that you get rejected and she doesn't think you're butthurt about it. She just will think it. And you sitting there saying you're not butthurt looks like a guy who is butthurt trying to convince her she's not. It just seems manipulative. So I would argue if you're in this situation, and I guarantee you guys are in this situation if you're married or in a relationship at all and you've ever been turned down. Fogging, agree and amplify, amuse mastery, negative inquiry, negative assertion. All these tools are here for a reason. They're in Praxeology Volume 1 Frame. It's fundamental. You can do fogging. Yeah, most girls think like that. You can do agree and amplify. You have no idea how mad I am. I'm going to put you through the drywall, woman. You have amuse mastery. Is that what I am? All right, then. You have negative inquiry. Well, why would I be butthurt? See what I mean? And all of these things completely change the dynamic, as opposed to your wife asserting something and you sitting there arguing with her about it, because now that thing that she asserted has become the central focus, the frame of the situation. How funny is that, right? Counseling doesn't work. What this guy's doing is actually classically a bad thing. When he talked about he just brings up the past as an excuse for what I'm doing. Justification. When you're having a fight with your wife, and why are you having a fight with your wife? I'll never know, but hey, nobody's perfect. And then it's over, and the next day you're sitting there enjoying a coffee and doing whatever, and your wife's like, I want to talk about last night. Under no circumstances, under pain of death, do not rehash the fight. All you're doing is saying, hey, you know all those negative emotions you had? Remember all that BS that I did not want to deal with? Can we redo it? Because I think I can do it better this time. It's like, no, we cannot. I call it the memory of a goldfish, and you need to have it. No idea what you're talking about. Was that a fight last night? Oh, you're gaslighting her. No, you're not having this stupid fight. I don't care what you have to say. You can have this fight if you want to, but I am going to McDonald's. That is it. Anyways, so that stuff aside, we'll get back to the main thrust of it. And this is, I told you I would save this until the end, and this is the end. Absolutely brilliant analysis of what it means when a girl says she wants to open herself up and be more validating to you. Jack 10. Dude, do you really not read between the lines here? And he brought up some quotes. She wanted me to show more emotion about the events happening in our lives, and you just do what you want without asking. I'll ask if I can go out, even if I know the answer is always yes. Those two statements, I told you to put a pin in them. Well, here we are. She feels that you can do whatever you want, unencumbered by anxiety or whatever the hell she's hamstering about. So, she feels that she's dealing with her worries, fears, concerns on an emotional island. She's going through some bad stuff, and in your head, she just feels like you can't empathize. So, she thinks that maybe, if she can convince you to open up, maybe she'll feel better. Probably thinking you've been repressing your emotions, so it'll be good for you too. And that's solipsism. She assumes that everybody else is thinking what she's thinking, you just have some magic power. But, and then when the guy opened up, and then she's like, yeah, actually, I don't like seeing them cry. I regret even asking you to do that. And nobody was happy, right? Like, look, I'll bet what happened is that you spewed a bunch of shit that you were anxious about, which is different than the shit that she was anxious about. And then she started getting anxious about your shit and her shit. She started resenting you for being anxious about different shit because that actually made her feel even more alone on her island of anxiety. Maybe you spewed some anxiety about the cybercrime thing. Maybe you're worried somehow you'll be charged and know the maximum sentence is 8 years and you can go to prison for something you didn't do. And she's thinking, what, is that what you're worried about? Everyone in my family is getting divorced and my dad is dying and all you care is about some bureaucratic legal BS that'll probably sort itself out? Quoting the guy again, where he had let her pull me into her frame, let her convince me it was fine to show feelings, but in the end, we both knew it was wrong. It's like, there's a way to handle this. Just realize the vast majority of the time, here's where I told you, save it for the end. The vast majority of the time, a wife is asking her husband to open up. It's a comfort test. She feels emotionally alone and wants assurances that you're feeling the same feelings about whatever it is making her anxious or sad. Let me use an example that you may be overtly aware of. Say you have a sales job, pay salary, and a commission. The executives announce that sales commissions will be cut by 20%, and say your boss actually has no commission, but he says this to you. Wow, they're really screwing you guys over. I can't believe they don't realize this. Half of you guys are going to be out the door in a week, and the other half are going to freak out trying to figure out how to buy Christmas presents for your family. This is BS. I'm going to do something about this. Now, the boss, despite this new reduced commission policy having zero impact on him, just echoed exactly what everybody else felt. They feel fucked over. They are anxious about the impact on their families. They are entertaining the thoughts of getting a new job. But since your boss seems to recognize that, maybe he'll ride things out, see if he can do something. You know, he probably can't, but you also know if you do interview somewhere else and they ask for references, you can talk about your current boss, which is a superior reference than your last employer 4 years ago. So it's not just an emotional blanket. It can actually make you feel more likely to succeed at whatever actions you take in the future. Now, another scenario. Let's say your boss, same thing, no commission, obvious idiot, and pretty much just says, I know this is a cut. I wish I had better news. Well, fuck that emotionless asshole and his clueless executives and this stupid dipshit company. Time to work on my resume. Now, Scenario 3. Say your boss does express his own feelings about this instead of reflecting yours. Oh, this is bad. What if you guys quit for better jobs? Then I'll have a smaller sales team, plus then my team would be smaller. Some other manager may then get promoted ahead of me. I'm really worried about this. And I think it's very possible to your reaction to your wife was number 3. So yeah, you can shut up in situations like this, but that's not what your wife is asking for in this comfort test. She wants to hear stuff like vulnerable. Who wouldn't feel vulnerable in our situation? Marriages are ending, lives are ending. You can't help but think about your loved ones and how finite our time together is. I just want to enjoy each day, but how can you do that when you're constantly reminded that every day could be your last? It's like you almost want to wish everything would just conclude, but then you hate yourself because you're wishing for all these bad things to accelerate. And how messed up is that? I think anybody would feel vulnerable, but that just makes me want to draw you and the family closer and some time together with each other, etc., etc., etc. Remember that, it's a scenario 1. It's you're empathizing with the other person. And this is what they mean when they want a guy to open up and emotionally validate. She wants to have her emotions reflected back at her so she doesn't feel alone. Remember that. Women are terrified of being alone, not just physically, but emotionally. That's why, as a married couple, you guys have noticed sometimes where your wife is just sitting on the sofa and you're sitting beside her playing, Call of Duty on the Xbox or whatever it is you're doing, not even paying attention to her, but just having you there and present. She finds that very comforting. And similar to this. So remember this, whenever, and I'm repeating it for the cheap seats, when a girl asks you to be more vulnerable, she's not asking for you to let her know your vulnerabilities and pile onto the ones that she already has. She wants to hear her vulnerabilities reflected back at her. And then as a guy, praxeological man, red-pilled man, you have to ask yourself, does she deserve this? Does she deserve this gift from me? And this is where, like he's talking about, the sex time over the weekend, stuff like that. Yeah, great sex time, having fun with the kids, everything that he wants, she's providing. So why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he? But then again, some Bushmills and a pot brownie is probably just as good, I guess. So at the risk of casting off some usual hubris, I'm pretty sure your wife would have melted in your arms if you said that shit. And I'll bet she wouldn't have noticed, just like I bet a lot of you don't notice right now, that you didn't actually confess any feelings. Every sentence was spoken in the second person. You. You aren't confessing any vulnerability at all. You're just packaging her vulnerability into a compact and simple package. And you're saying, look, do I think I could turn off the mess of thoughts in your mind into a simple package like this if I don't have an idea of what you're going through? And you know what? Maybe she doesn't buy all that wholesale. Maybe she does. I don't want things to conclude, though, so you calmly and reassuring respond, who does? Who wants anything good to end? So I'd call this advanced fogging, but you're essentially just summarizing her feelings or using some rhetorical questions to parse out those feelings themselves. Side note, before we finish this one, I know this is a bit of a longer one. That is exactly what you do in like some old pickup stuff. Like the Cube. You guys remember the Cube? Cube was absolutely great for that. You would ask a girl a question like picture a cube, picture a horse, picture a ladder. And then she would define what she thinks is her perfect horse. And then you would say, well, the horse is representing your ideal lover. And then you make up some BS about, well, since you wanted a, brown horse, you want a tan man with freckles wearing big hipster glasses. And if you look at her body language, she's either like nodding along with you because she agrees or shaking her head because she disagrees. If she agrees, and this is the clever part of it, if she agrees, say yes and if she disagrees, you say no, but, and then just say the exact opposite. And the idea there is you find out somebody's inner wants and values and concerns and all of this stuff without asking a direct question like a resume on a date. And so it's just the same thing there, but applied to a marriage, applied to somebody asking you to be more vulnerable without ruining your love life, without crying like a bitch, and without having to chug back Bushmills because you can't stand your mother-in-law. I would say that's pretty damn successful. Is that authentically you? Whatever the fuck that means? Well, no, but neither is crying to make your wife happy. So we're at where we're at. So the continuing on. So by the way, to anybody else, hearing this, you don't have to do any of this. This is a lot of work. This is inverting someone's request to share your emotional burden. And instead of expressing that, you're willing to take on more of theirs. And yet, you give them some conscious deniability that they're being the magnanimous one, since this is all framed as their willingness to listen to your vulnerabilities. So if you had a loved one who's depressed about some loss and what they're going through, you probably respond with, I mean, it sucks, but whatever, thanks for asking, but you don't need to deal with the shit in my head. You can just say, okay, hang in there, buddy. Or you can Excuse me. Or you can do this exact technique. And your friend's mom might say some stuff like, yeah, I know, right? I mean, I still remember learning how to make fire with him when I was 8, and, you know, a bunch of stuff about the old man that she misses. And look, he's letting you deal with the shit in his head. Maybe he feels better about everything after the conversation. And yet, and this is why that plausible deniability is there. Nobody feels the embarrassment if he would just ask, you know, can I just ramble about why I'm depressed so you can help me figure it out? Plausible deniability, helping everybody save face. This, again, it pairs well with friends, family, whatever, if you choose to do it. And again, the value thing I talked about. So it's a powerful tool that you pretty much want to break out only for the people in your life that you actually care about and who truly deserve it. If done right, it could be a powerful thing that anybody can do as a good friend or good husband. If your wife is shitty, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do anything. And while we love to say, I don't give a fuck and shut the fuck up, consider the range of human emotions and interactions that is broad enough that you can express empathy without crying like a little bitch. So we do say shut the fuck up in this context. And that's because if you don't know what to say, you'll never lose ground by saying nothing. It's not meant to be a strategy. It's meant to be a holding pattern while you figure this kind of stuff out, and these kind of more advanced techniques. So I prefer to see, so we say it in the context of, look, you're clearly taking the shit your wife says too much at face value. Her yelling at the dishes isn't about the dishes. Stop trying to compare the chores with her and shut the fuck up. But I'd prefer to see it in this context. Look, you're taking the shit your wife says at too much face value. Her yelling about the dishes isn't about the dishes. Responding to her and arguing about dishes is entering her frame, which isn't doing either of you any good. But if you want to pull her into your frame, you'll probably need to figure out whatever it is actually on about. Have you been a drunk captain? Are your lives objectively overwhelmed with kids and careers and she's dealing with it poorly? Does she have stupid, unrealistic expectations about household chores? And do you need to set a hard boundary about this? Think about it, and then you'll have some developed and thoughtful ideas, and stop trying to compare chores with her, and then shut the fuck up. See this? It all revolves around self-reflection, self-awareness, and then not taking women so seriously. How funny is that? The rest here is kind of just some ranting about the oldest teenager in the house. Here we go. So I'm going to skip all the way to the end, because this is like an interesting little side point. So we walked outside, and as we gathered the mattresses, she started yelling about her sister, recently split up with her husband, able to go jogging every day. And he forgets what he said, but it was something like, you know, you work hard at your CrossFit, so I'm proud of you for that. And then she snapped. So she expressed envy for her divorced sister, and you responded with a compliment that was infantilizing at best and condescending at worst. Since she snapped, but didn't elaborate on what she said, possibly because your left-brained, half-autistic mind that we see here so often, and we're so overwhelmed about actually having to process somebody's emotions that it's shut down, I can't tell whether you think, or whether I think this was a shit test or a comfort test, but it is very possible your response was smashing a comfort test screw with the shut the fuck up hammer. You got any other tools, dude? Or are you just going to refuse to ever pull out a screwdriver because the one time you dropped it on your foot? What he's meaning here is he didn't read that situation properly. She is envious of her divorced sister. Think about that red flag. My fear of missing out is going into overdrive. And you're like, oh, but baby, you cook such good cookies. It's a red flag. You got to pay attention to shit like that. Now, I mean, you could respond to it. You could bring up, you know, the fact that your sister-in-law in this case is an alcoholic or a drunk, or she's lonely and cries all the time, because people kind of only remember the stuff that we want to remember and they forget the other things. And that's a whole other topic. I'm not even going to waste it here about setting narratives, which is going to be a big thing for guys, especially when you find out that the biggest indication that you're going to get a divorce is whether your friends in your immediate vicinity are getting a divorce. It's crazy, isn't it? When you realize how much of it is outside of your control. It's the fear of missing out. There's been volumes written on it. Again, another episode, we'll get to that. He brings up the counseling and the therapy, where the therapy was just bringing up the old stuff. You know, the therapist thinks you're playing Clue, and you consider it a winning condition when they announce that your mental state is kernel anxious, who clearly had a motive because of bad experiences. Way to go, Sherlock. Really nailed it. And that's what they mostly do. The therapist's goal is to categorize somebody's condition with something that they remember from the book. They don't actually want to fix it. They want to diagnose it. And that is why everybody's on SSRIs now. Therapists are playing a game of Clue, and they'll figure it out. And then when they figure it out, they give you pills, and then they run a victory lap over how many lives they've been saved. Good job, sir. The rest is just him talking about the same stuff I talk about. And then at the final part, where it's the revenge fantasy this whole thing started with, she feels bad that sex is a way to control me in the relationship. He's like, dude, your wife is responsible for her own emotions and the fucked mental models that drive those emotions. But if her mental models mean that she irrationally rejects sex because she wants some kind of misguided need of control, well, she is overtly announcing, I don't want to enter your frame because I've decided it's better to lash out with self-destructive actions instead. I know it makes no sense, and that's what I'm going to do. And a lot of women think this way. A lot of women think this way. It is impossible to do much about it because they don't even realize they think this way. You just act happier and happier, and she just gets pissier and pissier, mostly because she wishes she could just operate with a healthy, constructive mindset like you do, but she's jealous, and she can't, and she's resentful. And it's easier to try to bring you down instead of figuring out her shit and stop thinking this way. And this will happen until you get an epic shit test known as the main event, where she realizes how stupidly self-destructive her thinking is, and basically everybody else. To you and everybody else. Banging on about your frame is just hurting her, so she should come to terms with that eventually. This is... Honestly, if I could rewrite frame, I would probably add an entire chapter just to this. That is generally how the main event happens. People are so stubborn. People are so scared to change. Women are so unreflective. And a lot of married guys go through this, man. They really do. Where the guy is becoming happier. The guy is becoming more successful. The girl, usually because that's what she learned from her parents, goes back to very self-destructive behavior, a lot like what you're seeing here. Until eventually she realizes that's like a fight or flight moment. She's going to get abandoned. You're going to leave. You're going to find a next better woman. And it takes that level of threat point to actually get a girl to swallow her ego and get in there and actually make an effort. And this is like the ultimate comfort test. And it's really, when it does happen, and it doesn't always happen, but when it does, I've only ever once seen a guy who wasn't ready for it. So as for the solution, I've already written about it. I'm tired of talking about it. Yeah, so here's the thing. Your wife is being very overt with this, though, which means, at least in my opinion, you don't need a main event, which is good, because this whole sequence of events leading to catharsis doesn't always happen. We have some older guys here that I'd ask if his first wife had smoothly escalated to this and then calmed the fuck down, because not everybody does. Some people are so fucked up that they're willing to indulge their self-destructive habits until they get divorced or slit their wrists in the bathtub because, it's control or some shit. Your wife's going to go down this path, but maybe she'll figure out it's a bad path, enjoying your frame, or maybe not. Can you control that? No. Can you influence that? Sure. Are you saying you've never influenced anybody in your life before? Come on. Now, the problem is when somebody's not even conscious that they're doing it, and there's not much you can do with that if they're not even aware. But your wife's aware of it. She's admitting it in very plain language. And women don't ever do that. And this is why this is a 28-minute field report about a Christmas party. You can help your wife get over this shit and enter your frame without having a main event, but you're just sitting there, twirling your red pill hammer in your hand with a perfectly good claw hammer on the other end of it, and a sort of just whistling happy, shrugging in responses. But you know what? The rest is him just giving a long speech, but that's the point on this one. Sex life isn't bad. She's trying to use it to control. A lot of this is just not falling into her frame is the key part of it. Having your own frame is another key part of it. Being, and I know this is going to sound weird, but being more empathic or empathetic. She's expressing things, and she's actually very good at expressing her feelings, where if he listens, he can just reflect those back at her. She doesn't feel emotionally alone. She doesn't feel the need to weaponize the sex life. They have more sex. And then pillow talk. The best time to tell a girl about things is after you've just had sex. They have a injection of testosterone in them. It calms down their neurosis. You'd be surprised once girls find out that, dude, every time I have sex, the next morning I feel great. And, it's because hormonally they're getting testosterone into them, and that mutes the empathic response. But as far as a girl knows, she's just like, sex makes me feel better. I should have more of it. And you're like, yes, you should. But you see what I mean? There is two ways this can go down. And in one way, you're chugging down Bushmills and eating pot brownies. And in the other way, you're having sex 3 days or 3 days in a row on the weekend, and then joking around with each other. So it's up to you. So I'll catch you guys later. God, that thing was 30 minutes. Jesus Christ, that was long. I saw Rolo in the chat. What's on, brother? Making fun of my sunglasses, are you? Or a sec, let me pop this out. Let's get a proper chat in here. There we go. I can see everybody now. So what is Rolo saying here, making fun of me? I want to start a 90s emo band with me. Dude, I was watching this thing yesterday. Remember Limp Bizkit? One of the guitarists. You look at him now, he looks like a hipster. He has like the stupid wavy millennial hair with the big mustache talking about his acoustic gear. And I'm like, what in the hell? That's the Limp Bizkit guy that used to look like a demon half the time. What the hell's wrong with him? Yeah, a Weezer cover band. All right, 1 second here. That's 25, I believe. Let me make sure. Yeah, that's 25. Anyways, where are we about? Oh yeah, shitting on Weezer. I don't even like Weezer. But they did a pretty decent cover of OK Computer. So I'll give them that. Fucking guy. I'm glad to hear Ned's doing better, by the way. All right, so a lot of you guys kind of seeing bits of your life through this, which you should, obviously. Is there a list of mental models? Not really how it works, Admiral. The best way to think about mental models is not so much like a shopping list of all the ones you have to do. Like I give you a lot, and that stuff here, that's all situational. But the best way to think of a mental model is a narrative structure that you anchor your decisions to. Like, what would Jesus do? Mental model. When you're in a situation, you don't know how to act, you think, how would Jesus act? And then you act in that way because you think about all the parables of the Bible, right? And that's all mental models are here. It's not so much that you need to adopt the ones that I'm telling you or the ones that you'll see in the red pill. It's more so about learning the skill set on how to form proper narratives, tell better stories, and use those to guide your actions to be more beneficial. The ones I provide are more, it's almost like canned lines from the old pickup thing. You're not meant to take them and use them. You're meant to take them and adapt them to what works for you, if that helps. These mid-watches always give me PTSD. Oh no. Can't be having that, sir. I can't be competing with Fallujah. Writing them down helps. Actually, you know what really helps? So writing it, like listening to it, 10% memorization, writing it down, 30%, teaching it. You'll remember 90% of what you learned. So if you have to red pill your friends, I will say this. The one thing you can do is if teaching them, but not expecting them to take any of it, more just like you solidifying what you're learning in your head, it's really the only way it kind of seems to work. I watched Ryan translated, read the books in German. Dude, a translation into German would be fun. Because I don't know, like, how many German speakers speak English? If these things ever got that popular, I think that would be a fun thing to do, is translate into other languages. Although I guess no, I can't do it with AI. I tried putting a page of fuck files into AI and it kicked me out of the program. So I'm like, all right, it refuses. I cuss too much. And half the time she makes that effort for the new guy. Oh, well, Sluggo, that's because the issue is there's no anxiety with the new guy. A lot of this stuff isn't that women are horrible. It's that women have built up baggage with a certain guy, and then with the new guy, it goes away. But it's the same problem that guys have if they just ditch their wives at the first sign of trouble and date somebody younger and hotter. The way they act encourages their new wife to act just the same like their old one did, and so it just kind of kicks the can down the road. But you know, everybody's so busy watching a girl have so much fun with their new beau that they forget in 3 years she's back to Wine Mom Central, right? From demon to hipster, truly an epic downfall. You sons of bitches. Weezer's first 2 albums are good. It could get a good thing, Rolo and you covering those. I don't think either one of us are Weezer fans, so I wouldn't worry about it. All right. Next one's going to be a little shorter. Impending divorce, save the marriage. And then Madonna-Whore complex. Yeah. I can go with that. All right. Let's get started. So a friend getting divorced can actually improve your marriage. MidsWatch, Ryan, I'll cut right to it, boys. Friend dread, how my buddy's impending divorce improved my marriage. It's an old school one. A post that is in part a lesson, part encouragement, and part revenge porn. This is a follow-up on my post on Prostitute game. Oh, is it the professor? Oh boy. I'm not gonna read that thing there, but what the hell was he even talking about with prostitute game? Oh boy. It's a long story, but the key part of it is a lot of guys did the math and they were like, how much does it cost to, keep a wife and lifestyle over 20 years versus hiring a prostitute 3 days a week? It turns out the prostitute was cheaper. I don't know what it's like in this economy. Not really the point of this one. It's just kind of a funny side effect or side note. Oh, and then the guy found out that like once he was having sex more with that girl, that his wife started sleeping with him more. It's a weird thing. So that friend's now getting divorced. Who'da thunk? His wife could not stop listening to the whispers. That's the post about the fear of missing out, where girls think about like, oh, there could be a life I could be living like my fun divorced friends right now, but I'm stuck with this guy. And she trotted off to her own apartment in order to take another ride on the carousel and find her yacht-owning billionaire with his 9-inch. All right, revenge fantasy stuff. Oh, she found a new Chad with a bigger dick. Oh no. He tried to talk some sense into her. His family tried. Her family tried. He sent her letters professing his love and fidelity. He's not using Dread Game, but the professor swears he is, including actually cheating. And she slept with him and continues to sleep with him even after moving out with desperate and pathetic passion. He tried to tell her the result of a 36-year-old hitting the market after 5 kids is not going to go well, and she didn't listen. Fun aside on this one. I talk about it in Dread. It's one of the 5 outcomes of Dread. And the one is like, obviously your wife gets more sexual, you have a better relationship, you're, a more praxeological man. But the other 4 states that everybody think of as failures are just different. There is, it's like a quadrant. Either you leave your wife or stay with your wife, and you sleep with your wife or you don't sleep with your wife, or like status quo. One of them, get a divorce, still sleep with the wife. You plate your ex. It happens. It has its own list of things. It goes into a lot of depth. I won't waste your time by trying to do it here. It'll take me hours to get through all of it. But I would suggest, shameless plug, go get the book. 3 months, she is living alone, single bedroom apartment. She tried to come over to the house several times a day. She told my friend just yesterday that she would come back if he would do a bunch of things. He just laughed. He couldn't stop laughing. She's giving him conditions. He thought that she must be delusional or mentally ill, but he was past it. He disrespected her, and she dropped on her knees right there, blew him in the back room while he hit the bong. Then he pushed her over the counter and finished inside quickly before kicking her out of the house, telling her he was tired. Bit of a hate F, but whatever. Anyways, before the wife's car was out of the driveway, still probably smelling like her, he was texting this 28-year-old who had matched earlier for drinks. Well, on the date, his wife texted him 20 more times. 24-year-old dentist that he played a couple weeks ago texted him for a "what you doing" text, but he tells her that she is crazy, so he went next door, blah blah blah. Basically, he's living the bachelor life, and let me skip all the bragging parts here and get to the key part of it. Okay, got to the lawyer's house. Oh yeah, it's more of that. Jesus. There's a lot of this just bragging how great this divorced 40-year-old guy's life was afterwards, and I'll get to that in a sec, but I mean, you don't need to hear the stories, and I got monetization to worry about. Okay, as he drove away from all of this stuff in his truck, he listened to his voicemails from his wife. The first one says, "We have to talk," then he laughed. So why am I telling you these stories? Because I also make sure to tell my own wife these stories of my friend's adventures. Can you guess her reaction? Let's just say her low sex drive is being solved. So, lessons learned. Post-war women with kids greatly overestimate their sexual market value and their marriage market value. Good-looking men with game who don't give an F, willing to date 20-year-olds and 30-somethings, absolutely will slay it in the market. And Dread Game works, and Millie does make women want to F. So, on that third point, Dread Game really works and makes women want to fuck. It can, but that's not the purpose of it. And this was like, the reason I wrote Dread was partially because he had actually written a book on Dread beforehand. Giant covert contract. If I do all these Dread things, then my wife will sleep with me. It's a horrible covert contract. It never works. And then stories like this get repeated along in like MGTOW communities and all that because it makes you feel empowered. Like, well, if I do this, I'll teach that bitch a lesson. It's like, it's not how it works. The purpose of Dread is to teach yourself not to be taken advantage of. Sexually, physically, emotionally, whatever. Sex is a trailing indicator of that. Now, it can be with her, it can be with another girl, but you can't treat it like, I will do this, then she'll want to sleep with me. Because as soon as you do that, the decisions you make are completely different, and then the outcomes you make are always going to be worse. Yes, women, after they get divorced, they think of their sexuality like a time machine. I was 18 when I married him, and I'm 18 20 years later when we divorced. And then she gets out there and it's like, I am not 18, and the guys don't care. So that's a girl problem. I don't really care. The best part is, too, good-looking men with game who are willing to do things are absolutely going to thrive. And that's for sure. You see all of this random cope stuff about, 40-year-old men and 50-year-old men and 30-year-old men, they're post-wall and nobody will love them and they're bald and they're ugly. It's like, dude, every single divorced guy I've had in my Patreon community was like terrified of this at first. And I kind of, walk them through basic game and stuff, how to act like a normal guy. And it's just, and there's even been girls in the chats going, yeah, it's just, the amount of fun men in my age are just gone. They're nowhere to be found. The good ones got snagged up. All that's left is the shitty ones. So yeah, every one of my guys, they're like, is in his 40s. Like, yeah, this chick was 25 and it was great. And this other one, he's like in his 50s. He's like, yeah, this chick was 30. Awesome. And they're finding the grass is truly greener on the other side. Even the guys who are still with their wives, a lot of it is just get a second opinion. Is it because you're not attractive, or is it because your wife's libido is shitty, or the baggage that she has for you? And then they find out when all of a sudden they just have to go through a little bit of charm, and girls are basically throwing themselves at them. And then they go back to their marriages and they think, why am I working so hard for this frumpy five? And it changes the dynamic from I'm trying to impress my wife to she needs to start impressing me. And it's all covert. Like, I don't mean covert contract. I mean as in the way you act expresses this sentiment without you saying a word. And it's these subtle little things that really make the difference. And this, I mean, it's a 10-year-old post, so it never really does match the refinement of what Red Pill has become now. But I mean, Red Pill's a living document. Things change and things get better as time goes on. So you should honestly expect a little bit of cringe in this older stuff. Anyways, Jack 10 rips into the professor. Dude, just get over your Madonna-Whore complex already. Thinking poorly about sexually promiscuous women makes no sense. Mostly because you end up bifurcating women into sluts and good girls. And this is why so many of us end up in sexless marriages. We met a good girl and thought that because she didn't put out early gave her some sort of virtue. But often it just indicates a sex-negative attitude of woman conditioned from what sexuality she has that needs to be rationed and is only deserving of a man's attention, which makes her the exact kind of woman that weaponizes sex, sexually restrained and unadventurous, and will only enjoy sex when she would otherwise feel too much anxiety, aka dread, to not have sex. If you don't particularly enjoy sex with women that you don't like very much, then don't have sex with them. But you keep commenting about this and it comes across as a stupid amount of projection. It's like a post-coital thought like this. Why did you just let a man who didn't like you that much have sex with you? And what kind of whore does that? Now I think even less of you. But you know, I suspect you'd be even more annoyed of these women that just gave you a peck on the cheek and said thanks, but it's too soon for me to go back to your place we just met. Then you'd think, great, I just spent 2 hours listening to some basic bitch talk about her basic bitch stuff, and now I'm not even going to get my dick wet. This is a waste of space. Even worse, and I'm sure this is a pretty far removed from your mind now, but worth considering, is that if you meet a fun, interesting woman that you could see yourself enjoying some long-term companionship with, so you won't ask her back to your place because you think that seduction shit is only for the whores you met through online dating, but you're really worried that you'll think less of her if she actually goes for it, and you like her enough that you don't want to think less of her. But that essentially locks you into this passive beta male approach, enjoying these dates and hiking and going to the museum, but don't be surprised if she says she's just not feeling with you and there's no chemistry. The common thread here is not sex, it's you spending time with basic bitches, so maybe do that less, and you don't need to worry too much about developing a taste for hate fucking. Absolutely funny. Off topic, I found this part funny too. So this other guy, Attacked by Fire, he was reading this whole thing. He's like, dude, where can I buy your book? I upvote everything that you write and I read. And then the professor chimes in with the link to his book saying, hey, thanks for the upvotes. And then the other guy's like, hey, we're not talking to you, buddy. No one said here they wanted to read your book. They were talking to Jack 10. See, he got upvoted because people like what he wrote. People didn't like what you wrote and downvoted you. Pretty simple. And then this one kind of infamous blue-pilled chick, she's called Atlas B. Shruggin. She was like this racist Jewish lady. It's just the weirdest thing. And she's like, this is the funniest thing I've ever read in my life. They all hated the professor. And so these dunks like this. Anyways, the professor then goes to Deer and defend his book to these people. And he goes, I think you're overestimating the value that your book provides as well as the rancor it generates. Fair. Anyways, aside from the shit posting part that I found absolutely hilarious, there is some takeaway from this, but it's not what he's posting, and it's not the message, and it's not this. It's, yes, a divorce isn't necessarily the end of your sex life with your ex-wife. Yes, you will thrive. And it's the Rollo Tomassi chart where girls peak early and decline fast, the wall, all that stuff. Guys take a lot longer to peak, and it's a much more sustained peak. So if you're in your 30s, worry about being the lonely old man, don't. I guarantee you, a little bit of charm, a little bit of fitness, a little bit of style, you will have women falling over you. Yes, it takes effort. And the beauty of it is, younger guys are terrified of women. Terrified of women. They don't approach. They're afraid to make their needs known. They're like, as much as you're a nice guy now, they are another level. And so girls their age will be like, oh, it's so nice to meet a man who knows what he wants. Like, yeah, but I'm an asshole. She goes, yeah, but at least it's honest. You know what I mean? So take away from that. And also, don't pander to your audience. I know these revenge fantasy things sound great and everybody loves the idea of that bitch ex-wife being tossed a lesson. It really does feed into the Madonna-Whore complex where there's two types of women. There's the virginal Madonnas and the whores of Babylon. And the problem with this is you're influencing your girls one way or another. And that's the one example here that really works well, where he said, you know, you like good girls. You don't want those whores. And yeah, she'll sleep with you on the first date, but then you don't respect her. And that's where you get all like, you know, goofy drama and you ditch her and then you go to marry the girl that made you wait 3 months. Now, some girls do that because I'm not a hooker anymore. Now I'm a nice girl, and they make you wait to make them feel more chaste. It's already pretty dysfunctional. But the problem is, by not immediately making your relationship sexual, you are friend zoning yourself. When you make it sexual, that's what that connection is girls talk about, that emotional high. That's because we actually get like dopamine hits from sex. And those dopamine hits are about as close as humans get to pair bonding. It's like a temporary high that you want to come back and get to more of them. So without sex, there is no relationship. And if you treat your girl like a good girl, and for some reason, maybe she's, you know, 28 and she wants to settle down and have a family, she still likes you, gets together, you've just associated sex from her standpoint as being a whore and a hooker and a bad person. And so she actively represses her own sex drive to kind of make you happy. And it's the weirdest thing to consider. But yes, guys will normally, through validation and rewarding of the behavior that they prefer, encourage more of it. And by doing this Madonna-Whore thing, you're encouraging your wife to be more of a frigid woman than of just a happy, fun, sexual woman. And I hate to say it, but yeah, you got to throw your judgment out the door. It doesn't matter what her notch count was beforehand. And this is going to be very controversial. It doesn't matter about how if she puts out on the first date or whatever. All that matters is how is she treating you. And that's the thing. If a girl has an ulterior motive of being with you, just date for 6 months. At some point, it will come out, and then you just make a decision in your best interest. This is why you don't have her move in for at least a year, because people have emotional, what do they call them? Psychological masks. They pretend to be what they think you want them to be, but they can't do it forever. After a year, they become their own true selves, and then you find, is this compatible with what I want? And then you can decide whether to stay or to go. But yeah, so definitely get rid of the Madonna-Whore concept in your head. If a girl puts on the first date, all that means is you guys have a head start on figuring out if you want to be with this girl long term or not. And if she doesn't sleep with you on the first date, then it's probably a good indication that it's better off finding somebody else who will, because there is enough women who will put out early and often that you do not have to waste your time with the fixer-upper just because it's wearing a white wedding dress. You know what I mean? So I'll catch you guys in the next one. This material would make an outstanding book. Well, Nick, funny you should mention that. My editor had a suggestion for a fourth? What book am I on? Suggestion for that. And the Substack's already kind of started in that direction. So I should remind myself to buy him some Canadian whiskey one of these days. As like a thank you, you know? Yeah, fourth. Okay, fourth book. Jesus. It's going to be like Clary. Oh my God. 2 more books. I've caught up to Clary. That's awesome. I can't wait to be a better and more prolific author than Aaron Clary. All right. Not today, though. But yeah, that's on Substack. So that's what I'm doing right now is I'll bring up stuff like this at the case studies. And then it'll be like a series of 4 or 5 different posts for the members where you can actually see like, because there's each one of these posts. And what I love about the old posts is that there's about 15 different things you can take from it, depending on which approach you take from it. And then the idea of just taking a deep dive and hitting it from all of them. Not so much me trying to make a narrative structure of dread or frame and that stuff. More just like, you know, case studies. Rusty Fuel, will dread be on Audible? It will. I just have to record it and master it and then release it, which I'm going to do. But the editing process was a lot quicker. It was supposed to come out on Christmas. And then February was supposed to be the audiobook. But since I got this out in November, that means I'm taking most of December off and I'll record it for December and have it out in January. So it'll be nice. Which will be a nice reward for guys that like reading books. Let me see here. Married Friends, Red Pill Epiphany about betas. Is this a long one? Oh, this is a long one. I don't know if I got it in me to do a long one. You know what? Fuck it. Let's do it. Let's do a long one. I can't read. Oh my God. Why didn't I think about the illiterate community? Oh no. All right, anywho. So there's 2 more on the list here. If I've got, one sec, get rid of these things. Personal Epiphany about betas, blah, blah, blah. Then Married Friends. The Married Friends was a short. So you know what? A long one and a short one. Oh, man. And this, actually, the Married Friend one's going to be fun because that's where the whole Ryan and Jack 10 beef starts. There's going to be an episode coming up of us having it out over irrational confidence, which I think you guys will have a chuckle about. That's the one like secret thing. Chesty kind of alluded to it when we did the last episode podcast together. But everybody thinks I'm a huge Jack 10 fan and this, that, and the other thing. Jack 10 and I don't get along at all. We have fundamentally different approaches to the red pill. He thinks I'm an idiot. I think he's insufferable. and there's a twist ending to the entire MidsWatch that'll blow your mind. Is Marty doing the voice for Audible? I don't know. Can Marty read? I don't know if he can. Anyway, stop goofing around, boys. I'm going to move these windows so I get better. It's the weirdest thing to have to concern yourself with, but like where you place the field reports that you read changes where you're looking on the camera and can alter the entire vibe of the thing. What can I say? I'm OCD when it comes to the details. Today on Couch's Time Machine. Well done, sir. Well done. All right, we'll do the personal epiphany one. A personal epiphany about beta males. Guys, Red Pill, MidsWatch, Ryan, it's good to see you. This one, it's a nice, interesting one about guys who become Red Pill and then become insufferable. I talk about it in Praxeology Volume 1 Frame. I call it the 6-month period where you're going to be insufferable. I know there's a better, it's wordsmithed way better in the book. Go buy it because I'm not going to read it out again because I have to pull it up. Yeah. But the point is, once you figured out your life, you become your mental point of origin, yada, 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 all the good stuff. You basically become insufferable. You're like, I can't watch movies. I can't listen to music. I can't make friends with anybody. It's because you're so hyper-focused on the brand new shiny keys that you've been jingling in front of you and you're good at them that you become horrible and nobody can tell you anything. And it wears off after a while and you start to realize, you know, just because people aren't exactly the way you are doesn't mean that they're useless to you. Granted, if you're autistic, definitely not, but that's the problem. The ones who talk about karate the most are the white belts, not the black belts. And that's the same situation here. The guys who are the least likely to be effective and good cheerleaders of anything Red Pill tend to be the ones that won't shut up about it and have to filter it into their entire worldview. So here's an example for you. Sadberry's personal epiphany about beta males. We got a new holiday place, and the guy living across the road, super friendly. The first time we arrived, we were unloading our furniture. As he was there introducing himself and his dog, his wife didn't come over, asked if I needed tools or anything. No, we're good. And then asked and scuttled off. We were there for a week, bumped into him every day. Should go for a coffee at a little scene place, and I'm thinking, what the fuck? I got the place to go with the beach and the kids, not dump them for bro time. Every time we go to the house, he pops out as we arrive and comes over for a hello and a chat. Asks my wife what she thought, and she thinks he's just being friendly. And I say he's creepy, like he wants to screw me or swap wives or something. Maybe he wants to marry you, who knows? The guys next door on the other side are different. They keep to themselves. I've smiled and waved once. And the other set are friendly when we have chance encounters. The friendlier guy I've spoken to maybe 4 or 5 times, but I like him. Holds a good conversation, actually gave me some great advice on something I implemented to great effect. I like the style, and better than I do of Ned Flanders. So it just struck me on the weekend that the creepy guy is probably now what you would think of as a beta orbiter, looking like to women. Women that like have guys around for validation, but they don't want them sexually. Maybe women just get so used to the nice guy thing, take that what you can, entitlement, gracing them with your friendship, blah, 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 overtly suckling, likes the guys too, I guess. Anyways, he kind of rambles there. Jack's like, I love this. This is actually one of my favorite ones of his. He's like, man, you don't have many friends, do you? Because if you did, you'd recognize that men will generally organize themselves into hierarchical structures, not orbital ones, which means you can have a beta friend and still get some value out of it and vice versa, especially if you're a homeowner and the potential friend in question is a neighbor. Generally, somebody with the socioeconomic status to own a home is competent at something. A beta bucks guy just means his wife is not fucking him. But the fact that he's 40 pounds overweight and still wears members-only jackets or has a haircut from 1988 does not change the relevant relationship to you. His unattractive appearance and tryhard personality would reflect poorly on you if you were going to parties in Vegas. But he's asking you for a coffee. He's not asking you for Vegas. For example, maybe he's a criminal defense lawyer. So unlike your other lawyer friends who mostly toil in corporate law firms dealing with things like health insurance disputes, this guy has some real-life law and helps you get out of your next speeding ticket. What does he want in return? For you to get some coffee with him at the local scene, which I'm sure he's raved about, and make some comment like, wow, this is a great view. Maybe we should get some lunch with family sometime. The fact that a new acquaintance is giving him validation will be such a brilliant stroke of dopamine in his mind that he'll probably do any favor you'd ever want to ask of him in the future. Value exchange. Value goes 2 ways. Think about that. Maybe you don't need anything from him. Maybe he has a boring job in an obscure STEM field with 0 real-world applicability. You're going to eventually need a plumber or a handyman, and instead of rolling the dice with Yelp, you can just ask him if he knows a good plumber. What's great about these thirsty, aspy guys is that they're 100% incapable of lying, just like Ned Flanders. Look, I know this sounds pretty dark triad for the comments I usually leave, and the advice above should be uncharitably described as probably just some lame user, but he might be useful, so pretend to be his friend so you can do him favors. Let me explain in the plainest way I can that this way of thinking is retarded. And the way he's talking about is like, staff, men and women, overtly sucking up to me creep me out even less as their agenda is obvious, like nice guys, I suppose. This creeps you out because you're too freaked out about the idea that you're a high status male. It's an unfamiliar feeling. You're not a cool guy. Nobody treats you as cool, and when they do, you flash back to some Carrie moment in your formative years where the cool guys thought it'd be hilarious to pretend you were cool and then dump pig's blood all over your prom dress. The idea that you're a high status man in society is so foreign to you that your mind just freaks out. Your post could literally be interpreted as self-loathing. Do you know this? Do you understand this? Why does this guy think I'm cool? I'm a loser. If he's acting this nice to me, he must be even a bigger loser. You are also way too socially retarded, and I mean that in a clinical sense, to trust your judgment of people's incentives and too passive to reject covert contracts. Someone kissing your ass is doing it for a reason. There is no free lunch. But if somebody offers you lunch and then asks you to pay afterwards, there are several situations where you can just say, how about no? And when you do that, they'll probably be annoyed and frustrated. They will react somewhat negatively. And if you're still struggling with issues of codependency like most guys, it probably just doesn't apply to your wife. The idea of anybody thinking poorly of you just kills you and makes you all sort of embarrassed and anxious and upset. But you hate paying for lunch that you didn't really want and only ate it because it seemed free. So now that you can't even eat a fucking sample at Costco because you're worried there's a covert contract that enjoying the spicy pickle sample means you have to now buy a $36 pickle jar set, you don't have to do shit. But if you don't buy that set, then the random guy hanging out at the samples might frown a bit, might cause you would totally freak out about a piece of shit and how much of a piece of shit you are and how dare you make somebody else feel bad. But fuck the Costco guy if he has a covert contract. And to be honest, very few people you deal with are on a strict sales or commission basis anyway. The Costco guy is not paid a percentage of the 36 pickle jar sets. He's probably just frowned because you said, wow, this pickle's really good, and then just decided to buy the jars, and disappointed is a natural reaction to feel when somebody likes your stuff but declines to buy it. But hey, you know his disappointment's not your problem, right? And that's why you freak out when an employee at the Banana Republic asks if they can help you when you walk into the store. Because their agenda is not obvious. Why is he helpful? Does he get a commission? But the prices are all on the shirts. It's not like he can overcharge me, but maybe he's going to say I look good in some shirts to convince me to buy it. What do I buy anyway? Should I ask him if you have any sales? Maybe he'll think I'm cheap and roll his eyes. Oh God, I hate when people think I'm cheap, but I don't want to buy this stuff. Let's look cheap. You kind of get the point we're going through here, right? And that's why you grunt, no, I'm good, I'm just looking, and charge past him with an awkward power walk, because that's too much cognitive load for your poor, socially incompetent mind. So let me give you a personal example with somebody who isn't heavily incentivized to give you a free lunch and then to fuck you over later. If you buy a car, you know you shouldn't trust the sales guy any further than you can throw him. I remember when my wife and I had kids and we needed to get a bigger car, or, the crossover to an SUV. So we go to the dealership, talk to the sales guy about test driving a crossover SUV. But we drove there in my car, which is still several years old because I basically buy a Honda every 10 years and call it a day. So the sales guy says, if you're also looking to sedans, we also have a spiffy new sedan that's heavily promoted in the NFL commercial just arrived on our lot. Do you want to test drive one of those too? Now, I know there's no free lunch here. He's not just letting me take that sucker out for altruistic sake. I also have zero interest in buying that car, but I did have an interest in driving it. So I said, sure. He says, sure, let me get the keys. Your wife will test drive the SUV, then we'll pull up the sedan and drive that. Comes back a few minutes later. He says, oh, since this is a very new release and we only have 6 units in the whole lot, I can't even test drive the sedan without a credit check. This is where I suspect that 70% of the married red pill would back out. But you'd probably do it for your stinky, grumpy, aspy way. I knew there was a catch. I'm not interested. As you flashed your manila folder containing printouts of TrueSAR and blah, blah, blah. It probably didn't even occur to you to smile a little and say, look, it's a really nice car. I'd love to test drive it. So I guess maybe I'll come back when you guys have more inventory, unless you can do something about it now. Guy leaves again. Wife starts freaking out. What are you doing? You can't buy 2 cars. And if I say no, if he insists I have to run a credit check, then he's either a sleazeball salesman or a worthless peon to his sleazeball salesman manager. But if I get to test drive that car, then I'll consider him working with me in good enough faith to consider buying the crossover SUV. And by the way, okay, yeah, more it's like about the reference there, so we'll skip past that. It's not like the sales guy got 0 out of the interaction. He knows I drove the whole interaction with him, and appealing to my wife to try and divide and conquer us would be pointless. He doesn't know my credit, but he knows I'm smart enough to know that hard credit inquiries aren't something you should just let somebody run. In other words, he knows I'm not stupid, but he also knows I'm not going to be difficult. Clearly, I'm getting more out of this interaction than he is, but he's selling me shit, so of course that's going to happen. That's the power dynamic. Long story short, test drive both cars. I test drive the sedan. The sales guy's excited, but the turning radius was clunky, so I made some comments like, man, this thing can't be easy to parallel park. Tries to salvage my opinion, talks about the rear view cameras, which is cool tech for the 2000s and all that, but I'm like, not feeling it, which I wasn't. Okay, so we're going to skip in. Did he end up buying the car or not? It doesn't really matter. But that was the point, is that he's trying to show how you handle these interactions where you're worried about people's motives and you're acting like somebody who has power in a situation with a little bit of social grace. And not just, oh, somebody likes me, must be a beta male. All right, so I'm going to skip a lot of this because it's just more of the random story. Gets to the summary of it. So do you or anybody else who wants to shit on the Ned Flanders type who just wanted to grab a coffee with you, who's the actual loser, you or him? Because you may be socially adept, but only in misleading people about your opinions because you're terrified of disappointing them. I'm thinking, what the hell? And that's the quote. I go to the beach with the kids not to dump them for some bro time. He's like, yeah, don't tell him this. Just think it and resent him, but don't ever tell somebody how you really feel because they could be sad face and you'd rather just whine about losers who think they found a kindred loser on the internet than say finding out some way he could be valuable in your life because then he seems to crave your winning presence. Or you can always just say, look, man, you're a friendly guy, but I'm a private person. I'd prefer to spend time with my family when we're here. I think you're a good dude. Happy this neighborhood has people like you here. I just don't have time to socialize. Again, that is honest. That would be a much better way of doing it than sitting here, fucking beta male. You see what I mean? Okay, we're going to skip all the way to the actionable advice, which a lot of skipping. So to sum this up with some actionable advice, go get some coffee with Ned Flanders. He may be a good guy to know for one reason or another, and unlike an orbiter relationship, this is a hierarchical one. This is why your mere company has value to him, but it will probably be some logical reason, or logistical reason. Useful guy to know for his profession, good recommendations, home service vendors, whatever. It seems like he's getting the short end of the stick, but that's literally why it's a hierarchical relationship. If business owners didn't get more value out of their employees than they paid them, they would literally go out of business. But the business owner has something in high demand, jobs to fill, that a lot of other people don't, and so it gets valued higher, and that's the disparity. And in any relationship that doesn't involve two people fucking each other over, that's pretty much okay. In fact, most relationships are going to be hierarchical in some way. These power dynamics exist everywhere. You can be completely ignorant of them, or you can learn them and utilize them. If you still struggle to understand this, think of the benevolent jock archetype. That's the high status guy that tells his friends to stop messing with you, not because he feels bad, but more because he's secure and confident enough that he doesn't need to reassert his rung on the social ladder by giving you a wedgie every 5 minutes, and also realizes it was effective social proof in junior high, but not high school. This is about a guy, like, being the kind jock. Doesn't want you guys getting bullied. Anyways, more rambling about that, but here's the fun part. So, in fact, this is the way society works. This is the way people work. This is the way relationships work. In fact, the only place where our blue-pilled society does not like to consider these kind of power dynamics is romantic relationships. Think about every movie you've seen with a sociopathic character, manipulating the power dynamics, blah, 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 professional, financial gain. But then there's a scene where he throws $10,000 at his wife and tells her, your tits are small, they bore me, get a boob job. For most audience, that's where their opinion shifts from, well, he's a psychopath, but he's lovable, and I have some respect to his cleverness, to what a piece of shit. And that's why, if you're blue pill indoctrinated and you have zero friends because you have zero social skills, you're doubly fucked. Some guys who read the red pill stuff are able to process it and think, oh yeah, like that time I gradually stopped hanging out with my old college buddy because he wouldn't stop acting like a prick. I should just do that with my wife. She's such a bitch. Why would I invest time in people that are shitty to me? This is why we say, stop putting pussy on a pedestal. Some guys advocate throwing the pussy in the trash can, put it in its place and hold it accountable, and you could do that, sure. But you could also just put it on the shelf with every other social relationship you have in your life. The ones where you put the more valuable ones on higher shelves and shift them around so the ones that are less valuable are on the lower shelves, and then you just act accordingly. If you have experiences with other relationships and other shelves, then understanding why your wife always gets shelf number one regardless of behavior makes no sense. But if you don't have those expectations, well, that's where you're the kind of guy who lets his wife call him a piece of shit for bringing home 36 jars of the pickles from Costco because you were too anxious not to buy them from the Costco sampler. Like, did you ever wonder why so many guys in here complain that their wives aren't responding to an increase in sexual market value despite a dramatically improved physical appearance? Maybe that's because there's way too much of a history of observing how you act in all these examples I describe above. So instead of doing things like immediately launching yourself from the couch when she's not interested in sex, but saying, Married Red Pill says I'm stoic, I need to run out of the house, and I'm high status and blah, 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 maybe just start acting with a little more social savviness. So I skipped a lot of it. He's actually very wordy on this one, and it's kind of annoying. When I record this video, and if you're watching this one not live, you might see like a giant gap and you might be a little lost, but here's the key point. A lot of guys think that relationships are not hierarchical. Like somebody doesn't have more to offer than the other person does, or the things that they offer have differing values, but the other person wants them more, which is like a factor. So for example, the job one. More people want jobs than are offering jobs. So the people offering jobs can set higher stakes because the person below that values it more. Same thing with a relationship. And that's the main blue pill programming, is where people stop thinking about relationships like a informal hierarchy. Somebody is offering somebody something of value and the other person is offering something else of value. Luckily with men and women, what we are offering is what the other person lacks. And so they're seen as more valuable. As a guy, calm, soft, stoic, strong. I can reach the top shelf of the cupboards. That's stuff that women can't do. And so they treat it as extremely valuable. Meanwhile, you know, women, what they offer you, sex, because you can't get sex from anything other than a woman. Well, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. So ideally, and this is what Rollo means when he talks a lot about the sexes are better together than apart. You know? The things that you offer and the things that she offer are different things, and you guys value them differently. That's why for you think, I'm not giving her anything of value, but she just worships the ground I walk on. It's like, yeah, the things you're offering her are things that you don't value because you have them in abundance, but she has them well, she doesn't have them. And that's why she values them higher. And then reciprocally. And that's how two people can think they're the better one. They're offering less in the relationship, but getting more. So yeah, something things to consider on this one. And if you notice you're one of those guys that as you get red pilled, you start getting more value, you start seeing everybody as they're all against you. They're all trying to steal something from you. And they must be losers because they think I'm a winner. It's like right there. It kind of lets you know you're that guy who used to be shitty and now is good, but is still thinking like that shitty guy. So just don't be that guy. Hopefully this all made sense to you. If not, we'll get there. Sex is an equal value exchange, not something extra of value that she's providing in a relationship. Whatever, beta provider cleanup guy. You don't even do sex for the same reasons. Guys do it because we're horny. Girls do it for 800 reasons. David Buss talks about that. Why women have sex. Revenge, hate, stress relief, mate retention. Tons of reasons. So yeah, sex is not an equal value exchange. If a girl doesn't need anything from you, if a girl doesn't need validation from you, then yeah, she's not going to value sex as much as you, but you're going to value it just as much as when you're horny, which means she has the power in that situation, which means she gets to ask a higher thing. Buy all the dishes for me. Pay for this, do this. Wait for 3 months. And a guy will do it because he's thirsty. Meanwhile, a guy who could fuck anybody, but doesn't, and the girl who really needs validation from him, he has all the power. Therefore, she gives him all kinds of crazy good sex, and he's just kind of ambivalent about it. But see what I mean? It's never equal. And that's kind of what he's getting at. The worst thing you can do about relationships is not think of them with the same hierarchical structure that you think of every other relationship that you have. Boss and employee, parent and child, etc., etc. Just because women smell nice and they shower every day doesn't mean they're just women, man. That's why women have that weird, he was mean to the waitstaff thing they always talk about. Yeah. Well, that's like the kind jock example up there, right? It's the guy, he can afford to be extra kind because he has that extra social capital to spend on that. Like he has no repercussions. That's why a lot of like the most attractive and valuable guys tend to have the most, beta or blue pilled approach to whatever. It's because they can. That's why probably Justin Waller can just, that's why, this is going to sound bad and I don't mean it to sound bad. This is why Justin Waller doesn't have to be particularly funny. Because he's already funny, just because he's that good looking. Meanwhile, I gotta crack jokes for hours. All because of that extra bit of height he's got on me, that son of a bitch. Next one's gonna be married friends. This one's way shorter, so it should be all right. So main event, married friends, father and provider. Yeah, it'll be fun. Your woman showers every day? I know, right? High quality woman, and all she asks is for me to never go to jail for insurrection. Talk about easy. Went for coffee with a guy from the gym. He introduced me to another guy. After a few meetings with the mentor, I realized they're involved in a pyramid scheme. Jesus. Yeah. That's the thing. A lot of guys are so afraid of saying no that they'll actually probably join in that pyramid scheme. I'm glad you figured it out. I'm assuming you aren't in the pyramid scheme. Because if you try to sell me Mary Kay right now, Daniel, I'm out. Being disgusted with low value people is one of the biggest tells of a man being low value himself. If you're high value, everybody else should be lower value. Well, it's not even that. It's I mean, you're right, but it's like the way it's framed is different. I always use the example of fat people. Everybody knows this guy. I had one. You know this guy who's like used to be a fat guy and then he lost a bunch of weight? Do you ever notice he's always like the meanest person to other fat people? How dare you not lose all of that weight that I just lost exactly when I did it? It was easy because I just finished it. hates fat people because part of it is they're reflecting his former failures. So when he sees other fat people, it just like, hey, remember when you were like this? He's like, fuck you. A lot of guys are like that too when they start meeting socially inept people or, you know, lower on the totem than them people. It's that they don't think of themselves as having any status or value anymore. And so it just reminds them of like, hey, remember when you were a loser like this? Like, fuck that guy too. So I wish it was about the other person, but it's really just like you still have the mental models of your old fat self. But you're a fit guy now. You have to act like fit people. Fit people are usually kinder towards fat people than fat people are to fat people. Why? Because you can afford to be, because you're thin. Girls, this is why, like, you know, everybody always is like, you know, I'm tired of these ruthless bitches. I'm going to date a less attractive girl. Should be more appreciative. Some of the cruelest people you will ever meet are mids. 9s and 10s. Stunner women are probably some of the kindest people you could ever meet. Why? Because they can afford to be. There's no reason not to be kind to everybody. Everybody is kind to her. She's kind to everybody else. Why wouldn't you? Same as guys. Everybody always thinks that the jock, and that's because of 80s movies, they always think of the jock as this ass who like ruined everything. And it's like, have you guys ever met the captain of the football team? They're some of the best people you've ever met. Dude, I bet you right now, who's that guy who throws for the Patriots? Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, those guys? I bet you they're the funnest guys you've ever met. Probably kind, give you the shirt off their back, signed. A lot of people don't even notice they're fat. Well, you guys always want to take it on digressions. Anyways, last one here's the married friends, and then I promise we'll be done. Isn't this much better than playing Minecraft? Just kidding. So what should I use a title for this one? Tom Brady, that's the one. Thank you. I forgot the Mannings and the Bradys are different. All right, I think I know what I'm going to do. Let's do it. Let's fix this little spike we got going on right now. At least try to look somewhat shoveled. This disheveled ain't the best. Wow, so you have a good job and are a great father. Tell me more. Said no one. Hi, guys. It's MidsWatch. It's Ryan. I just done 5 of these things today, so this is going to be the last one. Hopefully my voice doesn't thin out by the end of it. This is a guy, Iceman Wannabe, which I don't know the names we pick, whatever. Talking about married friends. And he says, hello, quick question. I had the closest thing to a main event that I've ever had. I don't know if it is or not, but it was a bad one. Side note, if you don't know what a married event is, or a main event is, usually at the end process of dread, or the process a guy takes to solve his sex life and stop being taken for granted, you can end up in a situation, the mother of all comfort test, a girl freaking out over the fact that she's been self-destructive, you've been improving, and she can't figure out how to get back into your life. And so it becomes like the big crying snot fest. That's a simple way of putting it. There's more to it, but that's in the book, so I'll skip there. I'll go into the details in a different post, but I have a pressing question. My marriage has been in the dumps for ages. Sex is a distant memory, and I haven't been close to for longer than I like to think about. Anyway, at the end of the discussion, she said something that left me doubtful of my course of action. Namely, that she envied people on Facebook about always posted being married to their best friend and felt that she didn't have that. I couldn't help but blurt out that was stupid. No idea if saying that was the best, but I reacted without thinking. Then she said, let's be friends, assume I'm on the market, but only you know it. And I said, I don't want to be your friend. I'm not interested in being your girlfriend. I want a wife, a lover, and sex. Then she got mad and said I was stupid and that we would be friends and the sex would come later, that it was implied. Well, going strictly by my limited proficiency in red pill, this whole idea sounded like supplicant behavior request, chore play, and basically a very convenient arrangement for her. I have to be a father, a provider, and all that. She gives me friendship with the nebulous promise of earning sex. Desire can't be negotiated, yada, yada, yada. Or is this a legitimate cry to be gamed and courted? I'm a neophyte, for sure. I've read a lot of red pill, but I haven't mastered it, and I'm trying to take it slow and be better instead of just going Rambo. So what should I do to respond to this? Is it a legitimate path or just AWOL behavior? Don't pull punches. I'm not here to be coddled. So Jack 10 of Hearts comes in. All right. I've used up my quota than the last guy. So this one's going to be short. 1. Father and provider doesn't get you any points. When you say this, you're saying the only value you bring to a marriage is raising your own kids and bringing home a paycheck. Whoa. No other man has ever done that. A job and raising your kids? I have no idea how your wife's panties aren't drenched every time that direct deposit hits your bank account. Snark aside, seriously, that gets you 0 points. You're just pissed because you've assumed your commitment to monogamy means a robust sex life, and that never happened. If your weeks mainly consist of going to work, parenting, watching TV, and grumping about various weekend obligations, well, start there. You're boring. Man, you're boring. You weren't boring when you met your wife, if only for the novelty of meeting somebody new, but also because you probably went to concerts and took hiking trips and hung out with a diverse and interesting group of friends. Then you got older, your commitments of shit like career, home ownership, and children eat away at that, and now you're just a grumpy husk of your former self who feels entitled to sex with his wife. Well, what about her effort, right? She's not the hot, fun thing you met all those years ago either. What do you have to do to put all this effort for? You don't. For her. I would love for my wife to say, pretend I'm single, because then I would have just paused and said, okay, in my head, you want me to think you're single, so we're not married. Let me think about that for a while, and then go to bed. Then I would have jotted down some notes for my future map in a notebook, turned out the lights, and passed out. Assume she's single? Well, that literally, by definition, means you have to assume you're single too, which is actually what your wife wants. She said it in the typical female solipsism that's no stranger to guys who know the red pill. And it probably didn't occur to her that this will mean stepping up her game as well, but it will. Oh, it will. Because now you're going to figure out how to start putting those building blocks of your life you had back together when you were single and desirable. It's not going to be a perfect replication, but you start by cutting out the boring stuff. Blah, 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 TV, who cares? Your wife will start perceiving some distance between you. She might get whiny or annoying or anxious and even say, that's not what I meant. But see, part of your map should involve play. Playing sports, playing at woodworking, playing happy hour with your buddies. Your wife asking to be friends and assume I'm single is her saying, remember when we used to play together? Because a life with some play and recreation makes it very easy to blur the lines of sexuality and intimacy in your marriage, because what is sex if not play? She's tired of feeling like sex is some discrete, scheduled block of time she needs to commit, lest you start whining about the sex you're owed because of that paycheck. Framed like that, maybe her suggestion doesn't sound so shitty, right? So when it gets down to being upset and anxious, it may be a shit test, but it's probably a shitty comfort test. She wants to play with you, but you seem to just be playing on your own, and she's jealous, so you can snark about those apples, bitch, or tell her about how to meet you at 9 on this Friday at the cool bar. Tell her to get someone to babysit the kids. You'll meet her starlight after work. And if she shows up in a nice dress, cuddle waiting for you, that you'll play with her. That's expectations, essentially, yeah. Going to the gym after work, hit the vanity muscles. That's what Friday workouts are for, right? Shower and change in the locker room. You don't need to be the whole stranger role play thing. Park your car in the hotel, enjoy a drink or 3, stumble home in an Uber, and then you can finally try initiating with your wife. Any other sex you try to have until this point will be whiny and entitling anyway, so don't even bother. Wake up the next day, invite her to take a shower with you, tell her you're going to take an Uber back to the hotel, get your car, and run some really annoying errands you've been missing for a while. Tell her you can't wait to have those omelets when you get back. What omelets? You want us to make omelets? Exactly. Repairing drywall for sex. That's negotiating desire. Repairing drywall for omelets? Well, that's not a bad deal. Anyways, this is paraphrased as a simple set of steps, but there is several assumptions here. If you don't have the financial or logistical means to afford some expensive drinks or arrange babysitting, then no wonder your wife isn't fucking you. Your life isn't just boring, it's boring and stressful. It's very easy to turn money into improvement and play. You get the latter, and you don't need to whine about how your paycheck makes you entitled to anything because you're spending on what you want. You're single, remember? And all this Facebook crap about marrying your best friend is only annoying if you take it hyper literally, because any photo you see is always that couple that's at a tropical waterfall, salsa dancing, or enjoying a fucking picnic, and it's all contrived, but all those things are play. It's just play acting, it's LARPing. There's probably some early date with your wife back when she was your girlfriend where you went to go see a movie, but it was sold out, so you had 3 hours to kill, so you had to do this and this and this, and you just adapted the situation. Seriously though, all these annoying Facebook posts, it's not about the waterfalls and the picnics. It's about play in whatever way you want. She used to like playing with you and can't imagine it's hard for her not to like playing with you again. Start of it. This is the start of something. Put a pin in this for the next couple episodes. I am also wagering a bottle of Macallan 12 that Ryan Stone will snark, "That was a short response." To which I was like, dude, you are trying sometimes. You should have just put that bottle of Jean Renault 1948, everybody knows you could have made bank, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, Op's talking too much, not you. Yeah, so that was kind of the start of like starting to ping off each other, which is pretty funny. The key point of this one is start living like you're single. It's Operation Scorched Earth. This is the start of Operation Scorched Earth. And for a lot of guys, like they always heard the stay plan is the same as the go plan. Well, yeah, I could do that. And then they do the same things that they're trying to like win over their wife anyway, which is wrong. What they should be doing is if your wife was dead, if she died, what would you do? How would you handle your life? What state of cleanliness and, you know, meal prep, all this stuff, what would you do if you were the only one responsible for your life, raising the kids, those decisions? Start making those decisions. Start doing those things. Don't worry about your wife helping or not, because, and here's what's going to happen. You're going to reach a certain point where either A, your wife sees you living your life, your mental point of origin, and thinking, I need to be valuable to him because I want to sleep with him and, you know, I like him and all that stuff. Then she'll start contributing in the ways that she sees you doing things. She starts adapting to your frame. Or she's like, great, he gets to do everything and I get to sit around eating things. And then you sit there, meals are prepped for the kids, the house is clean, you just finished your day at the gym, you're about to go to bed, but you got to go have a shower first. And then you look over, all that work done, feeling very proud of your accomplishments, and you see a frumpy soccer mom sitting there eating bonbons on the sofa, finger fucking her phone, going, why was I fighting for that piece of shit? And then that changes everything. At that point, you stop looking at her like that woman of Willendorf that you have to win over for the glorious joy of sex to. That dependent is wasting my fucking time. I'm going to go fuck that chick from the gym. And maybe if this one's good enough, I'll keep her around. But otherwise, I don't need her around. I'm already taking care of everything. So maybe it's time to just clear the house out of some old luggage. You know what I mean? See, a big part of dread, and this is a hard thing to articulate, is because it's got so much loaded language in it, is when you tell somebody, you got to do this for you, not for her. It's cliched, it's derivative. Everybody hears that and they think, well, that means do it for her, but convince myself I'm doing it for me. And it's like, no, that's not what it means. What it means is you're doing stuff as if you not even resent her. Like if you're angry at your wife still, you still care. I mean, you develop an ambivalence towards her. Whether it's your fault or her fault, it does not matter. You've decided my life is not going the way I want it, and the only one who will change that is me. So I am going to start living my life as if it's the way I want it. And then anybody who wants to be in my life can add to that in a way that I find valuable, not them. How many times have guys have arguments with their wives? We only had sex once last month. We need to have sex more. But I made you lunch. It's like, bitch, I can make my own lunch. I don't need lunch. I need a blowjob. But don't have those arguments, right? In this case, it's just acting as if I can make my own lunch. I need a blowjob. Then yeah, go make your own lunch. Now that she has nothing to offer you, she has to think, well, what do I do if I want to be in this guy's life? Now, here's the thing. There's no guarantee that happens. Like with the frumpy fingering the phone thing, there's an entirely non-zero chance that your soon-to-be ex-wife will look at you and say, I don't think he's worth any of that act I'm putting forward. That's her choice to make. But then she has told you flat out what she thinks, and you need to take actions according to your best interests. Now, I'm not saying you have to ditch her right then and there. Sometimes the kids are 2 years from moving out of the house, so you're like, you know what? I'll sit here with this harpy wench until the kids turn 18 and move out, or whatever age they move out now, 36. Jesus. And then I'll divorce her once we're empty nesters. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes it's like, dude, the kids are 10. We got another 10 years of this. I'm just going to go get a side piece, keep it on the down low, because I don't want to have to go through a divorce procedure and lose the idea of accessing my kids and raising them properly because I don't trust her with that too. That's Ultimate Cad did that himself. That's another option. But that's the point. It's your option to take. It's your ones to do. So when you get a lot of these things, and this is the one thing I liked about this, is that there's these very rare wives who are self-aware enough to kind of, in the best way that women can, articulate what he needs to do. And right here is it. You need to act like you're single again. That was the man I fell in love with. You know who, and I'll end on this. Do you know who is needing this advice a lot? Former pickup artists. Can you believe that shit? I had one back when I was doing the old consulting calls back in the day. I don't do those anymore because depressing as hell, not worth. The money just ain't worth it, bro. But so he was doing his whole pickup artist mystery. He was like one of the coaches under the mystery method. Worked for mystery. Pretty cool. And he picked himself up this Ukrainian or Russian wife, something like that. Super hot. Was great. She loved it. Fell in love with that whole thing. And then as soon as they got married, he started doing the Madonna-Whore thing. Started treating her like the virginal Madonna wife. And his wife got bored. His wife ended up leaving him. And he's like, I can't figure it out. I'm like, let me get this straight. You acted a certain way. You had fun. She enjoyed it. She liked you for who you were. And then to reward her, you changed everything that she bought into for the marriage and acted a completely different way that she found unattractive. He goes, yeah, basically. I'm like, yeah, you're not supposed to do that. Why didn't you just stay as that guy? Well, women shouldn't have to date these degenerate guys. They should want whatever. It's like, dude, she fell in love with the degenerate guy. Be that guy. Well, I don't want to do it for her. I'm like, do it for you. Because if she still leaves your ass, at least that degenerate guy was able to get a girl once. He can do it again. Oh, so I should do it for myself. Yeah. It's that old adage that the old pickup artists used to say. You're not doing this to win that girl's heart. You're doing it to win more girls. They used to call it snipers versus grenades. And not grenade as in ugly girls. Grenade as in like you're not trying to pick up one girl. You're trying to get more attractive to all girls. And then you have more options. And then as you have more options, you're taken for granted a lot less. Not just because you can filter through people for ones that are already treating you well, but that the people that do get you are in a subconscious level terrified of losing you. And so they act better. Do you ever wonder that? Do you ever see that? A lot of people end up treating you better because they want you more than you want them. It's the cardinal rule of relationships. And I hate to say it, but the best advice I've ever seen from a non-red pill source on relationships is the best marriages are where a husband has his one foot out the door. So take that. It's not the advice you wanted, but it's the advice that will probably work, and it's one you definitely need. So I'll catch you guys later. All right, so that is it. We can shoot some shit and be done. Which episode am I on? 21? Yeah, Married Friend Zone. All right, that's it. I'm done recording for today. We got 20 more episodes left. God damn it. Turn off your brain, the go-to bar. Oh, hey. Is that the beef? No, the beef's coming up. Oh, dude, the next 2 episodes are going to be where Jack and I are fighting like little fucking girls. I actually did something clever in that one, so I'm pretty proud about it. New Chick Talks will be reacting to Homath. Get on the train right like Homath, the YouTube channel, or just the Homath thing in general, because those are meant to be cheeky. I could probably argue and like do some pretty good Homath ones myself. I might do a new one. I don't know, we'll see. Like I said, the longer I've been doing this, the more I just don't find as much humor as I used to in Hate and Web. It's just, It's also derivative. And when I try to do it satirically, everybody takes it hyper literally. And so it kind of loses its point. It'd be like if Kiss, remember Knights in Satan's Army? They kept trying to pretend to be the devil. And then imagine one day if you're like, dude, everybody keeps thinking I'm the devil. I think they're missing the point of this. I don't want to be that guy. Anyways. He wasn't really wrong about only optionless beta males being satisfied with sex and otherwise don't get all your feelings. It's not so much about right or wrong, TX. It's how you frame it. Like, human relationships are fairly messy. And a lot of the time, and I get this is like a my truth thing, which I get it, but how you frame your interactions ultimately change how you perceive them, how you act within them, and the outcomes you get. So if you're looking at a relationship as in like, dude, sex needs to be hard to get, so I value it more. That's one way to look at it. Then there's, dude, if I'm not getting a blowjob every 2 weeks, I'm fucking losing my goddamn mind and I'm going to go fuck anything that walks. That's another way to look at it. Which one's the best? That's up to you. But always consider that your mental models of your situation are ultimately what define your outcomes. How does Briffault's law apply to dread? Well, the way Briffault's law applies to dread is that you can't have a covert contract about it. You can't think, well, if I do all these things, my wife will love me forever and I'll have a problem-free life. You can't do that because women get to decide. It's not your relationship to fix. You can't fix it. She decides if it's fixed or not. You can only decide on how valuable you get to be to as many people as possible so that you can pick from among them the ones who offer the most valuable to you. And if you're fairly valuable and you're offering a lot of things that any woman would want, the one you're with tends to fight harder to keep you. Because if there's anything women love more than loving a top tier man, it's loving that they get to compete with those other bitches and win that top tier man. I guess the equivalent I could think of is if you play a sport like baseball or football or something, it's like, hey, if you get a touchdown today, I'm going to blow you in the locker room. Like having a wife say that shit. I guarantee you're probably going to be more motivated to land a touchdown. That's like the equivalent of you. Hey, you see these 5 or 6 bitches right there? If I want you more than them, I'll blow you in the locker room. Damn. Please don't stoop to reaction videos. They're why I can't watch Rolo anymore. Dude, I have a ton of those. It's just I make them clever and interesting. And that was the whole point of the Chick Talks. And a lot of those ones was a react video. But I'm like, why don't we add some reaction to it? You know? A little over the top, a little entertaining. A wink to the audience that's like, oh, I hate when these guys just shit on women. But he's kind of doing it satirically. It's like, it's ironic. Can you believe these broads and all the shit they do? I think my ad for that, I have an ad on it. I don't know if I put it on here or not. Let me go look. Where is Red Morning?
Single moms.
Oh, for crying
a
out
horrible
loud.
position that's not my problem.
Ignore that. Did I put it in here? I don't think I did. I'll add it. Media source. Chick Talk. I think I had a good example for it. Oh, there it is. Can you believe it? Like,
look at us.
I don't know if this is playing yet.
Who would have thought? Not me.
Oh my God, he's in the wild. Oh my God, it's Patrick Stedman.
My favorite things about women, and I respect as well as love.
You enjoy these now, man. It is August 30th, 2023, in the year of our Lord. Pat Stedman is here. I don't know for how much longer. His sentencing is coming up. 4 to 8 years. Oh, I feel at peace. You know, a noble heart embiggens the cromulent man.
A noble spirit embiggens the smallest node.
It's a perfectly cromulent word.
Really? Really? Can't come out of a trial like this without understanding. Yes, you can. There's this painter back in Austria. They put him in jail and he wrote a book.
Who is this
What the
guy?
hell is that? That was like a very cleaned up and pretty looking Myron. So let's keep scrolling here until we find. So yeah, like that's how you do a reaction video. Do you see that though? It's light, it's funny. Like obviously it's stuff that's horrific, and instead of just being angry, I kind of almost take the approach of like laughing at the hurricane. Yeah, it's really just about entertaining, and it's just the medium. That's the problem with reaction videos, is that they're only as entertaining as the reaction. And just sitting here, it's like, see, this is why they're stupid and you're smart, because you're thinking what I'm saying. I don't agree with that format. I don't find it works very well. And I get it. It's that cargo cult reinforcement thing. But if I really wanted a cargo cult, I sure as fuck wouldn't be getting it here. I think Tate had the right idea with that, with his cargo cult, with the Mary Kay pyramid scheme. Made a shit ton of money. If only he would have stopped trafficking women and laundering money, he probably could have made a decent income. Because if I remember correctly, somebody told me the numbers. It was like 80,000 people in that fucking war room paying $50 a month to spam emails and make accounts to show off his traffic for an affiliate marketing payment. So you do the math. 80,000 people, $50 a month. That's like 4 million a month, and he would pay like 2 million of that for affiliate sales. And then at one point he blamed, like, the Matrix shut down my Stripe account. So it was like a 3-month period where he was collecting all of that money because people forgot to delete their stuff and then didn't pay out anything. All you had to do is not traffic women. And that would have been, that's like what, 12, 13 million dollars? It's like, dude, you can live like a king forever. Just off the interest on like a index fund. Yeah, just makes faces like Matt Walsh. Oh, dude, I watched one. I actually have a format that I was playing with. I don't think I'm going to do it. Of Matt Walsh reacting to that Bud Light dude chick thing. And he doesn't know how to do reaction videos. All he knows how to do is sit there, put his head in his hand, like go like this. Like he couldn't even be bothered to do like a little bit of this. Like it looked like he's laughing. No, he's not laughing. He's just disappointed in his sad son. And I'm like, there's no way anybody finds this entertaining. There's no fucking way. Drives me nuts. And then I guess he did the format after I started doing Chick Talks. And since he already knows I'm a YouTuber, I'm like, Matt Walsh, are you watching my stuff and then stealing my ideas to make your own shitty content? If so, I am offended, sir. I could have been great on the Daily Wire. I could have sit here bragging about those damn liberals and how much Israel is great and how Steven Crowder's an asshole. I'll do it better than anybody. I'll wear like a 3-piece suit and a bow tie. I don't give a fuck. Torsha does good React videos despite the lower production quality. Same with Jack. Fuck, I gotta start watching Manosphere content. I never watch anybody's stuff. Partially it's because I don't want to be inspired by it, and partially it's because, you know, I watch Minecraft videos. I'm like, I'd rather watch this. They're a little more creative. More likely than you think. I'll tell you right now, man. Guys, dude, I love this work. I love doing this. I like being effective. But if somebody were to offer me that Jordan Peterson $8 million a year money to sit here rambling about feminists, oh, you better fucking believe. Well, the problem is they don't believe in Jesus and Republicans. I'll do it in a heartbeat. Sorry, guys. I love you. I love your marriages. I love your fixing your lives. But fucking daddy's got to get paid. Anyways, I'm out of stuff here for this. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. I guess the one thing I'll put in here too, I forgot, the whispers. I made a reference to that one of the recordings. It's about the fear of missing out. Honestly, I should take some time and really do a deep dive and read into Dalrock stuff because I haven't done that before. Minecraft is superior to the swamp. Oh, it totally is. It totally is. In fact, if replay mod was fucking done. So this is my own fault. When I put the server back online, I forgot to check the replay mod version first. And I just did whatever the newest one was. The problem is the replay mod's only at version 1.20.1 and the server's on 1.20.2. So until they update this, I can't really make any videos for it. At least not good ones. So maybe I'll do some zombies. Yeah, so that's all I got. I'm gonna let you guys go. My girl actually lent me a Colleen Hoover book, and she's like, you really should read this. And I was thinking about this. Like, I want to be a better writer. She's the best writer out right now. Maybe it is worth giving a read. So we'll see. Jack got stuck in your cast. Oh, he got stuck in the beat up human castle. Yeah, the Imperium thing. That's kind of funny. All right, anyways, later, boys. I'll catch you later.